It's just
No.
the group think is brutal.
It's tough, man. It is tough. So they put me in a sour mood for the football season before that shit starts. I hate football by June now because of the way that the industry works. I'm so used to hating it in September. I wish I could go back to just the time of my life when I used to love it.
Maybe it'll happen again.
I doubt it. I don't play Madden anymore. Madden was everything.
Yeah. Those people know more about football than like actual football fans.
It's just so did I. I knew offensive linemen on other teams and stuff back in the day because they'd be like, oh, I want to get that guy because he's good.
It's like people play Call of Duty and know they have never touched the gun, but they could tell you every
right. I'm a general online, man.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome to
we're live?
Stochastic.com. MLB Deeper Dive presented by BetMGM. I'm Dave Loughran at Lavi_D, joined by Josh Engleman. Getting started a little bit early. Follow him at Josh Engleman on the Twitters or on the X. What's going on, brother? How you doing?
I've been on the X long before this change, so it was great then. I assume it's great now.
Yeah. You and me and Adam are, I think, aligned on this, but I enjoy people melting down, so it's good. But the X, I will say though, and I mentioned it to Adam today, there have been several times where I've been searching desperately for the tab and not able to find it, but that's about the biggest concern of mine, not seeing the blue bird anywhere.
I don't think I ever really noticed the blue bird. I just always have like a pin.
Yeah, you have.
I don't. I didn't use the Twitter app for the longest time. I used like an alternative.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
And like I have a pinned tab, so it's just the left side of my screen always, no matter what.
Well, we're happy to have you guys with us. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so yet. Subscribe to the channel as we draw closer to the start of NFL season. Yeah, I'm even looking forward to some NFL betting content. We crushed preseason betting last year was there. There's no way it's sustainable at the clip that I ran. It was dude, it was insane. There were people in the comments that are like, they thought they'd found, the goose that lays the golden egg. But I kept telling them in chat in the comments, it's like, listen, this can't keep going at this rate. I promise you, this is not like it's not sustainable, especially with preseason, but it's fun, man. They limit you, but anybody just looking to dabble, it's a good time.
Apparently we're lagging right now. It must be pretty aggressive. They must know that we're about to talk about Bronny James.
Don't. How bad's the lag, Jordan? Is this on your computer? Is this your computer?
It's Bronny, dude.
All right. Are we manageable? I don't care what the video looks like as long as the audio is okay. All right. Audio's good? All right.
Don't talk about Shmushma or Shmamlin at all during the show so we can actually get to 6 o'clock.
I wore myself out on the strategy show. If you watched or listened, I have my thoughts. But hey, subscribe to the channel and hit that thumbs up. We got 12 games to talk about today. Tuesday slate, some monster contests out there. I'll tell you what, dude. Seattle, Minnesota, another one. That totals down to 7.5. This is like the sixth time these six game that these guys have played in the last 9 games or something. So it's just becoming a bit monotonous at this point. But ever since we got probable pitchers for Atlanta or for Boston, we know that it's likely going to be Pivetta as the long man. Top stacks tool. Atlanta, forget about what Pivetta did. And I know you'd like to forget about that more than anyone against Oakland. But Atlanta absolutely running away with it. Top stack probability on a 12-game slate among 24 teams. They're at 12.5% top stack probability. The next highest team is at 6.2%. So they're doubling the next highest team. It's just a crazy offense. What's wrong?
You were cutting out in my ears, and then I didn't know if it was Zoom or you or Jordan or whatever, but it was clearly me.
We're off to a good start here today.
It's gonna be one of those days, dude. It's gonna be one of those days.
YouTube overlords looking for the sabotage any way they can. I see what's up.
We have I don't even have any thoughts on Brown.
We're not doing. Next time you and I are on a strategy show together. But
I mean, I don't have anything to add for it. Like, I don't really know anything about it other than just making the joke because our stream went down before. I hope he's good. That's terrifying. It must be awful.
He's out of the ICU. He's stable, but guy can't be more than what, 18, 19 years old.
He'll be a freshman at USC next year.
Oh, so like maybe 17 years old?
Yeah, I mean, like technically speaking, he is a high school graduate, I guess, but hasn't started college yet. I mean, I don't there's no telling how old. You can give it a year either direction. Like, I'm sure he's older.
Yeah. But, it's nuts to see something like that. But
that sucks, man. That'd be a fucking terrifying telephone call to get.
I do want to ask you this question though. We have some time here.
Now we got time. Are we going to go through Joey Chestnut's eating records now?
No, because I want to get your thoughts on the overview of this slate as well before we dive into the games. I think that actually helps a lot before we start going one by one. How much do you think this affects his prospects going forward and into the NBA?
Not at all.
Really?
Well, he had no prospects before this anyway. Not to me.
Okay. So, where do you think a reasonable place for him to be drafted was before all of this happened?
Reasonable or what would happen? Because those are two different things. He's going to get drafted in a place that he should not get drafted because his last name is James. Well, that's a dumb reason, but because he's LeBron James's son.
Okay, but all of this, it doesn't.
He shouldn't get drafted at all.
But no, where do you think he will get drafted if you had to guess?
Somewhere in the first round, probably the middle of the first.
You think he still will? Do you not think this impacts it? Okay.
No, not at all. He shouldn't have got drafted there whether he has this or not. So I can't see how this changes anything.
Okay. Let's talk baseball. Atlanta running away with it in the top stack tool. I just mentioned that 12.5% top stack chance. San Diego second at 6 point. It is so, I guess what I'm getting at here, because there's plenty of pitching that we're going to be able to get to as evidence just by looking at some of these stacks. The top stack probability, the likelihood that these teams are the top stack not named Atlanta is so flat throughout almost the entire slate.
It is. They're on a completely different planet. When I ran everything this morning, I thought I had some sort of bug in my stuff because I run everything that I'm doing at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. So there's nothing else out there that I'm going by. And when I did it, I was like, I must have typed the Braves run total in wrong or something because nothing else is catching. And then I looked through and I was like, oh no, they are very clearly the better team and everybody else is sort of the same team. You could, between 2 and 9, 2 and 10, you could pick any one of those teams and make that justification. There's no justification other than the Braves are at the top.
There's 16 teams between 3.5% and 6%. 16.
Good luck picking that.
Right. It's tough. But then on the pitcher side, you've got, 12 pitchers between 7 and 20% top 2 probability. I mean, that's clearly a bigger gap. Don't get me wrong. But there's a bunch of pitchers out there, relative to price that are interesting. So let's just dive straight into it. We'll kick it off with the New York Mets, New York Yankees, Verlander and Domingo Germán, 2 righties on the bump, 8.5 run total here at Yankee Stadium. Mets slight favorites, -115. We're going to get to, Minnesota, Seattle. We're going to talk about Snell, Burns, Alex Cobb, and a few other very popular pitchers. Savali's up there as well. But what do you make of Germán, 4% owned, does have some positive leverage in the top pitchers tool, and Verlander as well, 6.5% owned, 9% top 2 probability on our top pitchers tool. Are these two guys that in any way, just based on the low ownership, stand out to you?
Not really. I have a very small amount of Verlander. I don't have any of Domingo Germán. I'm totally fine with that. The Mets offense is really good on paper. I'm actually getting to the Mets offense and not Germán, so I guess we'll get to that in a second. But Yankee Stadium plays up power to both sides, big time to lefties in particular. So I don't really love this environment to try to get some pitching. So I have 0% Herman. I have 4% of Verlander. That's just basically randomness. I don't at 9,100 against the Yankees in Yankee Stadium. Like if this were in Shea, whatever Shea is called now, I don't know what Mets. What's the Mets? Where do the Mets play? City Field.
City Field, probably.
Yeah,
still?
well, whatever. If as long as the Mets are in Shea, then this would be more interesting for the pitchers. But for today in Yankee Stadium 2 or whatever the hell it's called, I would rather get the hitting on the Mets side.
Yeah. Shea has been closed since 2008. So you were close.
Look, the Mets play at Shea. It's just always Shea.
Yeah, I don't even know if it's still Citi Field. My assumption is it is. Yeah, it's still Citi Field.
Until they go under and it's somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, probably. But, the Mets do have a 4.5 run implied total, 4.2 for the Yankees. So
they do.
But it's just funny because it goes straight to what you and I were talking about, where all of these teams are just lumped together. 3.7% top stack chances for the Mets today. Yankees are further down at 2.2, but how are you differentiating between these teams? Like, are you taking stands? Are there some teams that don't profile great in a tool, but just stand out based on their value? Also low ownership. What are we doing here?
I'm going to the Mets pretty significantly. They're one of my most exposed teams. So I'm about a percentage point higher in top stack odds. And that's important in this case, basically to break ties. Instead of being 14th, they're 7th. And that's a pretty decent jump. But I also think they're pretty cheap. Lindor at 4,800 is like not a problematic price tag. Anything under 5K is just not an expensive price tag. And these guys are pulling no ownership. Herman on the season, 191 X ISO to lefties. Keep in mind, this is a park factor over the last 3 years, 121 for lefty power. It hasn't been that much better against righties, 150. If you add in the previous year, if you just want a bigger sample, still struggles with lefties. The strikeout stuff got better this year, but the power allowed is even more problematic. I think he's in for some trouble. If he has just a hint of bad command today, and they put any free base runners that exist, that becomes really scary for multi-run home runs in New York. So, well, I guess in Yankee Stadium. So I'm very interested in the Mets at low ownership. If Brandon Nimmo is 6% and the highest owned guy for the Mets, this team is very easy to roster from their price tags. And you're getting easy, like you can get 10% of everybody, 2x the field on everybody. And that is really not going to affect your full portfolio of lineups if you're maxing.
I like that thought. What about with Colorado and Washington, where you've got Austin Gomber and Trevor Williams, two guys that, like, even just to be clear here, even away from Coors, Austin Gomber hasn't been good. And I mean, he still has an xFIP north of 5 away from Coors. He's still allowing over 1.5 home runs per 9 away from Coors Field. As we know, Coors Field isn't it's not straight homer park. It's a lot of extra bases, but yeah, it's been trouble. And then with Williams, it is an objectively good matchup against the terrible offense, but he just 17% strikeout rate. He doesn't strike a lot of batters out. He also gives up some power. Feel free to hit on both sides of this. It's probably makes more sense than going back to me and me having to segue back into bats, because I don't think you're going to spend a ton of time on pitching here.
I actually have 8% of Trevor Williams I think
it's reasonable.
Only because the Rockies are completely terrible.
Right.
It's not because I like Trevor Williams.
$6,000.
Yep. I have nothing else to add to that. I don't like rostering Trevor Williams. I don't want to, but anywhere in that 5 to 10% range is fine, because as bad as he is at pitching, I think this Rockies team is equally as bad at hitting, except for yesterday, which we told you was going to happen, and then it happened. I don't have any interest in Austin Gomber. That should be not a surprise. I mean, honestly, like both sides are basically the same between Williams and Gomber. It just so happens that the Nats are better than the Rockies. If I'm going anywhere here, it is for hitting, and it is back to Washington, because Austin Gomber is not very good, and that is something that I'd like to attack. 183 X ISO to lefties, 202 to righties over the past 2 seasons. This park plays up runs. It plays up power. This is a really nice spot for the Nats against the lefty in Gomber. They're going to have 8 righties going up against him. CJ Abrams will be the only lefty. That'll be a leadoff spot. So that kind of negates the platoon split issues, because he's just going to get the most plate appearances anyway. I'm very happy to get to the Nats. 8th in top stack, but 1st in value. I'm a little lighter than that, but the value is unquestionable. They look good. That's why Austin Gomber's as bad as the hitters.
He hit. Well, look, away from home, again, 1.8 home runs per 9, 509 xFIP, 16% strikeout rate. These are not good. He has an 8% K minus BB rate. These are pretty disastrous numbers. And we're talking about on the road. Sure, this isn't the best park, but he's also getting only 41% ground balls too. So you're going to see some opportunities here. That's one reason why he's allowed a lot of homers. I get it. Washington, where do they look as far as value goes? Just
they're
curious.
great. Number 1
in the tool.
Yeah, they're first. I have them second, but it's basically the same rate, about 10 and a half, somewhere in that neighborhood. They are $4,800 Lane Thomas. Everybody else is under 4K. These guys are free.
Yeah. We have them 3 right now, but right 1% behind San Francisco and Minnesota. We have San Fran at 10.9, Minnesota at 10.6, and top value percentage 9.8 for Washington.
Did it update again?
I don't know. I refreshed it again just to make sure I wasn't crazy.
Okay, yeah, it looks like we got another one right after.
But still, the point
I mean, it's all 9.8 and 10.9 are basically the same number.
Yeah,
anyway.
It makes no difference. Any bats for Colorado?
Not really. Is this a better lineup than it was yesterday? Yeah, and that helps, I guess. Do I think that this is a good team? No. I got it at a 298 aggregate WOBA. That is 6 points lower than any other team on this slate, including the A's. I have scattered amounts because Trevor Williams isn't good, but I'm not prioritizing the Rockies. I think we got the Rockies game yesterday.
How about with Charlie Morton and Nick Pivetta expected to be the probable long reliever here? John Schreiber is your opener, what we anticipate. Also, he was activated from the 60-day injured list. What? Today? Yeah, he's the opener. He was just activated with that shoulder. I mean, he's going what? He's going an inning probably, and then they're turning this one over to Nick Pivetta. Yeah. The Braves have a monster implied total today. It is, I think, even again, I think it's the highest on the slate, 5.8 right now. They are popping in the top stacks tool, head and shoulders above everybody else. Let's actually start there. And then if you want to get into Morton or any pitching, we can talk about that. But the elephant in the room is clearly this Brave stack.
I'll be quick with the pitching. I don't have any interest in Pivetta, although he went out there and, cost me $90,000 a week ago, but I'm not going to go there today. And I don't really have much interest in Charlie Morton because the Red Sox are good, 4.9-ish run implied total. I'm not trying to attack the Boston bats with Morton when he's appropriately priced. There's just better options out there today. Braves bats, on the other hand, number 1 in top stack, dead last in value, I believe, 12, 24. No, not dead last, 22nd in value, but either way, 4th in ownership. I'm happy to get there, and I am. I'm jamming the Braves away here. Lefty power plays down, but lots of scoring should be expected here, whether it's Pivetta or whoever they knock around once they come in. We're getting the best offense in the best spot. And Acuna's at 18%. Look, the piece that's making me nervous, honestly, is that I think Atlanta is going to be more owned than this by a little bit. We've seen it happen earlier in the year. They're just on a different level. And when you get to that high level of pricing, I think it does start to skew things a little bit. But Acuna at 18, Albies at 10, everybody else is in single digits. I don't care about the ownership at all. I don't think that it's all that necessary. I want to go to the team that has the 13% chance of being the top scoring stack. I'll happily go to anybody that's getting ownership. Acuna's up to 6,700, which is more expensive than Pivetta, which is also funny to think about, projected for quite a bit more points too. I love getting to Atlanta here. They're on such a different level that I expected their ownership to be different, and it's not. So I'm just going there.
Yeah, he's more expensive than like 10 starting pitchers on this slate.
And he deserves it.
Yeah. How do you make this work would be the next question. It's less, do we like the Braves, and more, what's the best way to make this stack work and still feel semi-okay with what you're putting out there?
I don't think it's all that difficult, really. I mean, like Blake Snell's at 10K, but Alex Cobb's out there getting 28% ownership at 7,600. Aaron Savali's out there at 20% owned at 7,200. Like, there's enough value out there from a pitching perspective that it's not all that hard. And the final three spots, like, even if you just leave out one of the first five guys, if you need to add in a lefty Eddie Rosario or a $3,900 Marcelo Ozuna, there are ways to make this Brave stack a little bit cheaper if you need to. I don't think the salary is much of an issue.
Easy enough. You have any Boston bats against Morton?
Not much. Just scattered amounts. Morton's really good. This is not a spot where I want to try to attack there. So this is just like random filler, random three-mans. The run total still looks good for Boston. Like, they're not in a bad spot overall. It just so happens that Charlie Morton's on the opposite side, and that just doesn't seem necessary on a 12-gamer.
This game has a huge total. Yeah, 10.5. I mean, a lot of that going to Atlanta, but 10.5. There's nothing else in the double digits, nothing above. I think we have one other 9.5 on the slate, and that is the Cubs and White Sox. Aside from that, everything is at 9 or lower. So, yeah, by far the highest total. A lot of it going to Atlanta for good reason. They look great. What about Kansas City and Cleveland? Zach Greinke, I said to Adam today, he might not have a strikeout in this game, and I wouldn't be shocked. You think about it, it's not the crazy. He's gone a couple starts, I think, this year without a strikeout, too.
Yeah, I mean, he's not exactly that guy.
No, and he hasn't been for a while. Aaron Savali getting ownership for sure.
Yeah.
If you sort by ownership in the top stack tool, he's pulling the fifth highest ownership, essentially tied with Pablo Lopez at fourth, 22%. He's $7,200. It's clearly a favorable matchup. 9.2% top two probability in the tool. So definite negative leverage, but how often are you just going to be steered to him and not really have much choice but to play him in this matchup at a low 7K price tag?
So I'm getting to all of the Alex Cobb, and we'll get to that in a bit, but I just think that that's a better spot overall. But I have no problem getting to Savali here. The park works. It limits runs. It certainly limits righty power. The Royals offense isn't all that good to begin with. You're seeing that, 3.7-ish run implied total on Kansas City. Savali's in a great spot. I think 20% ownership is about right. I don't have much else to say. I just prefer Alex Cobb in the same area in San Francisco. So pitching at home, getting Oakland coming there, who's obviously not very good. I just like that matchup a little bit better. If you're someone that wants to tell me that it's Savali over Cobb, no complaints here. Both of those guys look like the 7K options you want to get to.
Do you have I know you have no complaints, but do you have a preference between the two?
Yeah, I have like multiples of Cobb.
Okay, I figured. Yeah. All right.
It's a slightly better park. It's a better park for limiting power. And I think that the A's offense is worse than the Rays. Yeah, and I think that Alex Cobb is a slightly better strikeout pitcher than Aaron Savali.
I can't help but wonder how popular that Cobb-Savali pairing is going to be in expensive stacks today.
I don't know if you're going to need both of those guys that much.
You don't think so? You think you can still get up to, do you think you can go with a good Brave stack, a 5-man Brave stack, and have a Pablo Lopez or a Blake Snell with a Savali or a Cobb and have no issues with that at all?
I do, because of how much Blake Snell I have. So you're basically going to get one of Snell, Burns, Pablo Lopez in basically everything. And then half of those pairings are going to be Savali or Cobb. That's really where we stand right now. Okay. They're obviously going to get rostered together and you're just going to be able to get whatever bat you want, but I don't think it'll be as prevalent.
All right. Yeah, I'm going to actually pull up the lineup generator in a second. I'm curious to see what type of lineups it's spitting out at us, because my assumption is you're going to get a lot of what you're talking about too. Like a lot of 5-man Braves with one of the top tier pitchers and then one of those 7K guys. And then what other stacks what other pieces are you seeing mixed in? Are you going are you forced to go real cheap on the remaining, 3 pieces of that lineup?
Yeah. So the first lineup that I have is Snell, Cobb, Francisco Alvarez, Vogelbach, Marcana, Ryan McMahon, Joey Meneses, CJ Abrams. So, filling with the Nats isn't all that problematic. That, they grade out pretty well and are cheap. That makes for some decent filler. I got Justin Turner in one of my lineups with Snell and Cobb and a Brave stack. Yu Chang, Keibert Ruiz. But, like a average-ish hitters. I'm not dumpster diving too much.
Sure. The lineup generator, first lineup I ran. And of course, everyone's going to get different lineups when it runs because there's just thousands of lineups. After you throw the bad ones out, you're getting the good ones. Domingo Germán, Blake Snell with a 5-3 Giants Brave stack, right?
Okay.
But, and Albies is in there. Murphy's in there. So, yeah, there's some more expensive players in there. Washington, Cleveland, a 4-4 with Corbin, Burns, and Verlander. Let's see if we get. I'm curious. Pablo Lopez and Burns with Cleveland, Boston. Not a ton of not a lot of 5-man Braves yet. I'm sure I'll get to them, but I don't see a ton of them just yet.
They are expensive.
Yeah, they're very expensive for sure. But it is interesting to see what pops up there. A lot of Cleveland stacks.
Not my favorite thing. I'm not surprised to see it. They are my most overowned team. I see them as like a real negative leverage type situation. 4th and top stack, 4th and top value. I'm lower than that. They are second in ownership. They do look good against Greinke. I mean, it's Zach Greinke on the opposite side. He stinks, but I'm not enamored with Cleveland if they're already getting the ownership.
It looks a lot like what you're seeing though. Is the lineup generator is jamming some more expensive pitchers and foregoing the cheaper options, which is definitely a route that you can take.
Yeah, I mean, that's how you get to Cleveland then. It's only Jose Ramirez is expensive. So you can have 2 good pitchers, a Cleveland stack, and pretty good bats filling that out.
Yeah. Here's a 4-4 Braves Giants with Pablo Lopez and Corbin Burns. That's an interesting lineup.
Don't mind that one at all.
Yeah. What do you want to do with this Cleveland game outside of Savali?
I'm basically fading Cleveland. I don't have anybody more than 3%. That's a Med Rosario. They're second in ownership. I just think they're overowned. I would much rather I'd rather find the money for Atlanta and pay down elsewhere than pay up for a Cleveland team that's already getting comparable ownership to Atlanta. I think it's just, we're talking about 2 very different teams in top stack odds. And I just don't have any interest in joining the field for Cleveland. Like, as I look at the Guardians, I immediately think, well, if they're at 8.3% aggregate ownership and the Nats are at 5.8, I'd rather just have the Nats at less ownership.
Makes sense. Let's talk about Cleveland and Minnesota then, where you've got 2 quality pitchers. Kirby's not very popular, though, 11%. It's up from where it was earlier in the day. 10% top 2 probability on DraftKings. Again, if you're new to the show, you're new to the channel, unfamiliar with the tools, haven't taken advantage of the fact that everything's 50% off for the first week or month, or the lineup generator for $4.48 for the first week. I'll show you some screenshots in a bit. Just monster wins across the board over the weekend and yesterday. I know you saw some of those, but but I was saying, if you're not familiar with it, top 2 probability just means the likelihood that they finish as a top 2 pitcher on DraftKings, where you have to play 2 of them. He seems fine. 11% ownership. On the other side, though, Pablo Lopez, 23% ownership, 22% top play probability, or top 2 probability, 10,400. But man, it's a good matchup against a very K-heavy Seattle squad.
This is a really terrifying game to me, just clear across the board. I wish I were getting to more George Kirby at 8,700. He's not the best strikeout guy in the world, but holy hell, is this a good strikeout matchup against Minnesota?
Yeah.
If you can get to him at 8,700, like, there is a ceiling here because of the way that some of these guys in the Minnesota lineup strike out, because they do it in bunches. And then on the opposite side, Pablo Lopez is just really, really good. And the problem here is that Seattle is also good. And it's a decent strikeout matchup, but like not much better than that, slightly above average for Lopez. So you're paying the normal price for Pablo Lopez in a pretty difficult matchup against Seattle. As I look at Blake Snell taking on the Pirates, even if you want to say Cobb, although he's obviously in like a very different tier of salary. If you want to look at, Urias for the Dodgers, it's the Blue Jays on the opposite side. Urias is 9,600. Corbin Burns, who we haven't gotten to yet. Reds are on the opposite side. It's certainly not a fun offense to attack. I just don't like the spot that Pablo Lopez is in. I'm not shocked that he's getting 25% ownership, but I think he's a little overowned. He's not a guy I'm getting to. I'm not really getting to this game. That doesn't feel like the correct answer, but I don't know what I would want to get to here. I honestly think Kirby is my favorite option, but there's no chance I would ever get to anything relevant here.
With Kirby, though, look, he's not an elite strikeout pitcher, but 22% isn't terrible.
No.
Minnesota's active roster versus righties has a 28.3% K rate. It's almost 4% higher than the next worst team, active roster versus righties, which is actually Seattle.
They have 4 guys in the lineup that have 30% or higher K rates projected from Steamer, including Joey Gallo at 37%.
Crazy. They also hit for power.
Yes.
So it's, catch 22 here.
Yeah.
I do think the analysis on Kirby is interesting, though, just because when he does have those big games and he goes like 7-8 strong and listen, his last start was against Minnesota. He went 7 scoreless with 4 hits and 10 strikeouts. You would have at $8,300, you would have really liked to have his 37 DraftKings points.
Sure would. And you don't need 37. Like, you're happy with 27 today for sure. Even 17 is like his projection, basically. So there is upside here for Kirby. Absolutely. But 206 x ISO to lefties so far this year. They're running out 7 lefties. This is a basically neutral park. Plays up a little bit more to lefty power. There's a lot of extremes. The power for Minnesota, and Adam talked about this yesterday for this game. It still applies here. There's a lot of power for both teams. Both pitchers are good. Something will be actionable here. I don't know what that is, but I don't hate any bit of it. I also don't love any bit of it.
Yeah, Adam's take was essentially, and he said some people got up in arms over this, even though it made sense. It's like, hey, I like the bats and the pitchers from this game, which makes perfect sense. It's because you look at their weaknesses. It's strikeouts. The strengths are power. Something's got to give.
I like Lopez the least of anything here, but he's very clearly the best thing in this game too.
Do you agree that Corbin Burnes should have 4 times the ownership of George Kirby today at a similar price point? 40% to 11%, 9,100, 9,200 and 8,700.
I mean, I don't disagree with it. It's extreme for sure, but it's a little much. But I don't think it's crazy.
Yeah, I'm just saying, if you look at the top pitchers tool, Corbin Burnes has 18% top 2 probability. Kirby's at 10. So
I have Kirby at 7% optimal and Burnes at 23% optimal. So like a little over 3 to 1.
Not far off.
No.
Anything else from this game? I think we covered it.
No, I have just scattered amounts of the Twins and Mariners bats. If you are someone that likes either side of that one, by all means, go for it. I do think the Seattle side is just slightly more interesting because of Lopez's increased ownership. That said, you're not going to feel great about any part of this.
Well, let's talk about Corbin Burnes then. We'll get into Cincinnati and Minnesota here. By the way, almost at 100. I just hit almost at 100 thumbs up. 13 likes from Atone for Your Sins here on a Tuesday evening. Show some love on the YouTube Deeper Dive, MLB Deeper Dive. Dude, we're almost through July. It's the dog days of summer. The least you could do is a good deed. I'm just here at a subtle reminder. We forget. We got busy lives. Get us north of 100. We got almost 500 people watching. I think it's more than doable, more than reasonable, if nothing else, to ask and to do so. Abbott Burnes. Abbott's 9,500. He's 6% owned. Corbin Burnes, 40% owned at 9,200 against Cincinnati. Yeah, it's not in Cincinnati. It's in Milwaukee, which isn't exactly a pitcher's haven, but
no,
it's not Great American Ballpark. And Corbin Burnes has looked considerably better of late, also coming off just 2 incredible performances, double-digit strikeouts in both. He definitely has turned things around after a rocky start to the season, but he's extraordinarily popular, Josh. Highest owned pitcher on the slate, right ahead of Snell.
Yeah, he's too popular. That ownership number is too high. That doesn't mean that he's not good. I don't think he's the best pitcher for today, but I certainly think that he is in that conversation. I think that Snell and Cobb are slightly more optimal options, Snell in particular, but Corbin Burnes is my third ranked pitcher. I don't have anything majorly negative to say about him personally, other than 42% ownership is a lot, and it's causing me to have a little bit less. That said, he is incredibly talented. 29% K rate to lefties this season, 22 to righties, which is just funny to see, but that's what happens when you have a certain pitch mix. I mean, the Reds are like an average offense. You get the incredibly average Ellie De La Cruz for Cincinnati going today too. Like if you want to play Corbin Burnes, he's obvious. He's the most popular pitcher, and I'm not surprised by that. But he's a little overowned.
Any thoughts on Abbott here? We had talked about it this morning that he's been very good, but he's also been extraordinarily lucky. Yeah, and Adam actually went over all of that. You know, you look at the BABIP, you look at the left on base percentage. If you're unfamiliar with some of those stats, they more so are just an indicator of how lucky you've been or how unlucky you've been. He's been pretty lucky, although the strikeouts have been legit.
Pretty lucky. Yeah, look, I feel like he plays every day. Every day. A lot.
He's also $9,500 on DraftKings.
Yeah. I just like, for some reason, I feel like I have a Reds game on every day, every time this pitches. I think I've seen every one of his starts. And like, I don't care about the Cincinnati Reds. Like that, not exactly my team before this. I don't have any. 9,500 here in Milwaukee, plays up power. This is not the spot to get to Andrew Abbott. But I mean, kid's talented, fun to watch. I'm sure they're very happy. 39% K rate to lefties so far this season. It's only 167 pitches, but holy shit. Not really having the same sort of success against righties. Has given up quite a bit of power as well. 208x ISO. Look, he's going to have some bumps in the road. This is a great spot to try to find, like, right. If you want to go to William Contreras or Willie Adames, or like Tyrone Taylor to try to buy a home run today, I think that's pretty reasonable against Abbott, given his proclivity for giving up righty power. I don't want to get to him as a pitcher. I don't really want to get to either side of this game either. 24th in ownership for the Reds. That's dead last. 14th for the Brewers. They're 17th in top stack. This game is basically just Burnes and nothing else. And
to be clear, when I say that Abbott's been lucky, it doesn't mean he hasn't been really, really good. It just means like the 8-inning one hitters and, 6+ frames and 7 of 9 starts and allowing 2 hits and 1 hit and 2 hits and 3 hits probably isn't sustainable across the course of the season. That's all I'm saying. You mean to tell me him and Ellie De La Cruz aren't just the most talented baseball players ever? You mean that 192 BABIP and 95% left on base percentage that's not going to hold for Abbott here? 95% LOB percentage is nuts. I remember when it was still 100 because I talked about it with Adam on the show. What's league average, like 75? It used to be in that 70 to 75 range. Right. I haven't looked in ages. But it used to be around 70 something. I know that for a fact. Yeah, that sounds right to me. 95%. So yeah. I can give you the actual answer to that right now. I'm going to say 76%. Well, you're going to say it incorrectly. It's 72. Okay, that's close enough. No, it's not. That's pretty close. No, it's not really. I mean, it's pretty close, but very close, actually. It isn't close, 95%. So, I mean, you were off by more than 5%. That is outside, that's too high of a p-value for me. Well, you're not good at math then, because it's 4% that I was off. I mean, that's not how you do that calculation, but you can simply subtract one number from the other and think that is a I said 76. The relative difference is 5%. Well, it's a little over 5%. You said 76, correct? And you said 72. Yeah, 76 is 5.55555. Repeating percentage higher than 72. Dude, let's go with 4% here. Come on. Okay, well, you can go with 4. I'll go with the right answer, and we can just move forward however you'd like. I'm going to go with 76. You called me wrong on the strategy show this morning. I don't even remember what it was about, but I was right. I'm going to go with what'd you say? You called me wrong on the strategy show about something this morning. I don't remember what it was, but I'm right. I didn't call you wrong. I called you a nihilist. Well, I don't know whether that's right or wrong is besides the point. That wasn't the part I disagreed with. I believe that you look at life as ultimately meaningless and without purpose. Although you do enjoy some things, you look at life as an ultimately meaningless and aimless venture.
I mean, I don't look at it like that. It just is.
See, I told you. That's what I'm saying.
I don't think that was what I disagreed with.
Yeah, it was. Maybe not. I don't know. I don't remember that.
I don't remember either. It's been too long of a day.
I just
whatever it was, I was right then and I'm right now.
Yeah, I'll go 4%. Do you like bats in this game?
Not really, no. I don't have the Reds for obvious reasons, and I basically don't have the Brewers. I mean, Corbin Burns and Andrew Abbott are both good. And I assume Andrew Abbott is going to continue to have that rabbit's foot jammed up his ass for the rest of the season.
Yeah, seriously.
Or whatever he has up there.
Even so, even if he doesn't, he's still good is the thing. Even if he's not supremely lucky, he's still good. So, yeah, that happens. And we'll talk about the next game on the list then. Unless you got anything else here, I think we can move on. Chicago Cubs, Chicago White Sox, Kyle Hendrick, Michael Kopech, 2 righties, 9.5 run total here. I did ask Adam about Kopech today just because he's kind of an enigma. Like you never know what you're going to get from him. And there are times he's still striking batters out at 25%, I think, on the season. He still gets strikeouts. Yeah. It's just he's going to have games where he completely melts down. And he's going up against the Cubs team that it's not like this is a slouch team offensively. Do you have any interest, though, at 4.8% ownership? Because he's 7,100 and Savali and Alex Cobb at a similar price are so popular.
I have 6%. He's striking out 29% of lefties this season. I mean, he's got wild stuff. And I mean wild as the word that I'm trying to use here. There's no telling where that ball is going to end up when it gets to the plate, which is great for strikeouts on the day that it works. But he could also just walk the first 4 dudes of this game and no one's going to bat an eye. Extreme risk, extreme reward, 7,100. So it doesn't hurt as much when something goes wrong with Kopech. But and like the Cubs aren't good enough to like really make this problematic. But there is certainly heavy upside and downside from Kopech. I'm happy to get there. I like him more than I like Savali. I just don't like him more than I like Cobb. And when I say that I like him more than I like Savali, I mean relative to the ownership. If I can get Kopech to 10% and he's 5% owned, that's just going to feel a little bit better than 20% owned Savali.
Do you think it's encouraging that he has a 11% K minus BB rate despite having a 25% strikeout rate?
That is a big, I mean, that is, he's just letting it rip, dude. That ball's going to end up somewhere near the plate. You better hope it's not a strike.
14% walk rate is really something else. But when he gets guys to swing, they miss a lot.
Can you, imagine if this was 2021 when he had a 36% K rate across 70 innings, but he still had this walk rate, and it would just be like, good luck getting into the box.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, yeah. But he had a 36% K rate and 8% walk rate that year. I mean, what dirty, phenomenal numbers.
Yeah, you don't want to be in the box for those. I mean, then he was thrown out of the bullpen, so like it's obviously a little bit different, games. Right? Yeah, so it's a little bit different. But like he obviously has real stuff, but his ability to locate that stuff is poor.
And it's not necessarily effectively wild either.
No, not so much. Not so much. 589 FIP this season, 522 xFIP, 543 xERA. I mean, none of it looks good. 241 BABIP, though, has been a little bit less lucky than Andrew Abbott.
Sometimes the tough thing with stacking against a guy like this, though, is that, he'll put a lot of guys on base, but you only get 2 points for a walk. So does he give up some home runs? Yeah, he does. I mean, he's had a couple games earlier in the year. He gave up 5 home runs in his opener against San Francisco. And then 3 or 4 starts later, he gave up 4 home runs to Cincy. Listen to these walk numbers, though, recently. It actually makes it difficult to love teams against him because he's running his pitch count up on walks. 4, 4, 7, 3, and 6 over his last 5 starts. Those are insane numbers.
They're really crazy.
4, 7, 3, and 6 walks.
So many walks. There's so many pitches.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like if you're not giving the opponent, if you're not allowing the opponent an opportunity to hit, how much does it matter?
Oh my, it's just so many walks. Man, he had that stretch in May where it was 0-1-2-1-1, and it's like, oh, he figured it out. And then it was just like, oh, he didn't figure it out.
Yeah, his walk rate over his last 5 starts. I'm pulling it up right now.
It's
that's
high.
not bad. That's not bad. 25%. 25%.
I mean, that's a lot.
His last 5 starts, he has a minus 7.4 K minus BB.
I was just gonna say it's 24 walks, 17 Ks, a crisp 11.5 per 9.
Oh my god, it's not great.
No, it's not. That said, very interesting play at 7,100.
Yeah, intriguing if nothing else. Maybe he'll be like Francisco Liriano, where you know that if you play him, you'll know if you're winning or losing the slate by the first inning.
Liriano.
Francisco Liriano was that guy. He's a perfect example. Liriano would go out there, and you could either tell if he had his command or he didn't. And if he did, he was going to walk away with like 6 strong innings, 1 run, no runs, 8 strikeouts. If he didn't, he was lucky to get out of the first inning.
Man, I guess I really just his good year in my head is carrying a lot of water.
Who, Liriano?
Yeah. I thought that he had many more opportunities like that.
No, it unraveled quickly.
Yeah, he only had 4 seasons above 2 wins above replacement. But
if you look at his game logs there, like 2015, 14.
Oh
16.
yeah. Oh, that by that point, yeah, he's overcooked.
Yeah, but there were some really great starts. You're like, man, there's a great spot next time up, and he just gets he beat himself essentially, and that's kind of what Kopech does. But that leads me to the question: what do you do with these Cubs bats today?
I mean, in theory, they should just be as interesting as Michael Kopech. Like, I don't think that the Cubs are all that great, but the run total looks good. Power plays up in this park to both sides, 112 to righties, 110 to lefties. And you have the opportunity to get a couple freebies on there. And if you can make something happen with a couple swings of the bat, this one just ends pretty quickly. That said, the Cubs are number 1 in ownership, 2nd in top stack, 10th in top value. I got to be honest, I don't know how they're 2nd. That is a bit more extreme to me than I care to agree with. So I have very little interest in going to the Cubs, other than it's a boom bust spot, but I think it's a lot of bust. They are the most owned team by a mile, and I don't totally get it.
I know they are, but again, it goes back to what we were saying before. If Kopech walks 5 batters and then gives up a home run and goes 4 1/3 inning, it's not going to get it done for you.
No, I don't. If they were like free, it'd be one thing. They're 10th in our top value calculation. So I have them 12th in top stack and 9th in value. I just don't see the upside as much here. But the tippy top upside is when Kopech just walks 4 or 5 guys and those 2 swings of the bat become 2 and 3 run homers. And then it's just a really nice stack. But in general, I don't think that the Cubs are more likely to be the highest scorers in comparison to the Padres, the Giants, the Dodgers, the Red Sox, the Guardians, the Nats, the Astros. These are all teams with very comparable run totals. The Cubs don't have that same sort of pedigree of raw talent.
Absolutely.
They could go crazy against Kopech, but I don't think that we should expect that either.
How is it that two pitchers in the top 3 pitchers in the top 20, or you could say bottom 20 of pitches per plate appearance are White Sox, yet Kopech is not one of them. I would have definitely thought that he was up there.
Same.
But there's 3 White Sox. Dylan Cease, Lucas Giolito, and Lance Lynn.
Oh, yeah.
What a wild rotation they have. Pitchers.
I mean, I have such trouble separating Cease, Kopech, and
Giolito.
and Giolito in my brain. To me, they're all the exact same dude.
I know, it's weird. I really thought Kopech would be up there. He's not. Anyway, do we have any White Sox bats that we want to look at?
I think they're fine. I think they're a little under-owned here against Hendricks. Hendricks is bad. He's like barely hanging on to baseball life at this point. 13% K rate to lefties, just under 20 to righties, gives up a little bit of power to lefties. He's like really unappealing. I like attacking him in parks that are helpful. So I don't mind getting to the White Sox. I just don't happen to have a lot. But they're lightly owned. They're a very interesting stack today in a large field GPP.
7 down, 5 to go, baby. Hey, Josh, did you know that football season is approaching? You're not as excited as I am. I understand that.
That's one way to describe it.
You know how you would be, though, is if betting was legal in North Carolina. I think that would change the game up for you. I really do.
I don't.
Because you'd go to BetMGM.
No, that's true.
Yeah, it is true. You'd go to BetMGM. You'd take $10. Now, ideally, you would use the link in the description or the one in chat that we have, because otherwise you're not getting this offer. Let's just assume you're a North Carolina resident. You've never heard of Stochastic before. You pop on, you go, Jeepers Creepers, what a deal this is. You're telling me that I click the link, I sign up, I deposit $10 and make a $10 bet on whatever I want. And once that bet settles, not only is everything insured on my first bet up to $1,000, which means if I lose it, I get it all back. But also, I get a free month of Stochastic Plus Platinum. You go, so Laffy, when you said that 50% off all the tools, you're telling me I just get them all for free. If I make one $10 bet using the link, I get all of them for free, $120 value, including Discord, including the MLB, NPGA, and NFL lineup generator. All of that for free for the entirety of the month. Ownership tools, every single sport. Josh, my answer would be a resounding yes.
It's a no-brainer, man. It won't make me any more excited to bet on the NFL, but it will make me more excited to bet, that's for sure, because I'm going to let it rip the moment that I can. I hope it happens at the beginning of the year. I hope they don't drag their feet for it. It could last as long as mid-June, which would be pretty annoying. I'd like to be able to get some NBA stuff out in January, but I am incredibly excited to take it. I really, really hope this offer exists. It's such an easy decision to make. I'm going to let it rip with the full max that I can. And if I win the bet, it's just great. I just get to keep moving like, cool, everything's awesome. I have a shit ton of money. And if it loses, I just get to run it back again because it just gets popped back in as bet credits. It's the easiest thing I'll ever do. And I don't even get the same benefit as everybody else because everybody else gets to check out one of the tools on the back end for free. That's really doesn't make a difference to me. I already have it, but other people get even more than what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's the real pot sweetener. You go, okay, so let's say I just put $10 in. I go with the minimum. You're saying I lose the bet, I get the 10 back. All right, cool. So now I'm at even again, or I win it and I'm up to 20 or 18 if you're playing, standard juice, and I get the $120 value tools, all the tools. So essentially, you're putting 10 in to get 120 out of the gate and potentially a whole lot more on the BetMGM side. I'll say this, and this is the last thing I'll say. You don't even have to like betting. Like if you're here, you like DFS and you'd like to have access to tools, particularly when they're free and they're the best you're going to find in the industry. No brainer, man. Link in the description and in chat. $10 limit. I would say max it as much as you can because it's insured up to $1,000. But if not, $10 will get the trick, will do the trick. And after that first bet settles, boom, you got $120 free month, including our Discord and everything else. BetMGM. Yeah. All right, let's talk about Texas and Houston here. So I guess it's Bradford who's going to get some bulk innings here, but I don't know how many is he going to be able to go? He hasn't been pitching. He hasn't been going a lot of innings for Texas.
Why is my sheet not coming up here? Oh, there it goes. It just white screen for everything when I typed in the 9 to go to the Astros Rangers game. I think Bradford's going to go deep enough. I don't think he really matters at 5,400 because it's the Astros on the opposite side. And he's not a strikeout pitcher. I don't think depth in this game is the reason that I'm not going to play him. His talent level and the matchup are going to get there first.
Yeah, I was more so just alluding to the fact that, could Houston get a lot of innings against Bradford. I think a lot of that is contingent upon how well he pitches, which would then in turn affect how much Houston you would want to have as that game continues. But they're 1.9 or 1.6% aggregate ownership on Houston in the top stack tool today, 4.5% top stack probability. Any interest in those Houston bats today? And of course, Texas bats against France.
I do. I have 12 5-man stacks of Houston right now. They look like a really interesting alternative to Atlanta because they're also really expensive. But if you just want to have no ownership instead of whatever the Braves end up soaking up, then get this pseudo bullpen game against Texas. The park's like neutral. The Astros have plenty of talent in this lineup. Tucker, Bregman, Abreu, I guess. Is this the strongest Astros lineup you can get? No, it's absolutely not. But 3% ownership to Jeremy Pena is the high mark here for Houston. For a team with no ownership, I think Houston is probably going a little underrepresented. You're paying up to be contrarian here.
Texas bats against France. Any interest there? I mean, it's an expensive team, but it's a good offense.
I'd rather be on the Houston side. Texas is fine. Like I don't look at JP France and think this is a guy that I need to avoid or a guy that I want to aggressively attack. So you want to hit the key parts here of Texas, the Nate Lowe's, the Adolis Garcias, the Marcus Semyons, but they're down Seager right now. That's just one less, quality bat in this Texas lineup. They're fine. I think both sets of bats in this game are underrepresented in comparison to the field, but I prefer the Astros side if I had to get to one.
Okay. Hey, let's talk about Pittsburgh and San Diego. And as you guys know, Greg Ehrenberg, Neil Orfield coming up next, live before lock. Do not go anywhere. Nope. Also, I think I'm going to jump on the underdog draft with Neil tonight. He's got a big guest coming up, 9 p.m. Eastern time. And I think they're streaming that to both OddsShopper or the Fantasy Football channel and to the Stochastic channel. So
nice.
Some dual streams going on there. If you want to hang out with us, it's been a lot of fun. I know it's not Josh's thing, but boy, do I love it.
I want a ticket for one of them, so I'm going to have to fake a draft at some point in time.
For DraftKings?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got 50 so far.
Yeah, this will be the only one unless I randomly get another one that I didn't know was coming. You're going to
have so much fun, man.
No, I'm going to hate it. I'll probably auto-draft it and then never look at it again.
You're going to think you're going to get some trouser action. You're going to look at it and go, oh my God, what is that? I didn't expect to become aroused over a best ball draft. By the time
there's nothing I can think of that's worse.
You're going to have 150 drafts in a week. You're going to get no sleep. You're just going to be grinding through the night, stiff as a board. They're going to hit you like a ton of bricks, dude.
No, the idea of having to think about I just drafted a 5th string wideout in the 12th round. Oh my God, there's nothing worse. Well, I don't know why anybody wants to play this garbage Powerball version of fantasy sports.
You're on an island here, my friend.
But I think everybody's wrong about football in general, which is a garbage product.
I don't know why people wouldn't want us to get to 200 likes on this video when we're at 156 now.
You're finally saying true things.
Yeah, I can do some rudimentary math. That means we need 44 likes, Josh, to get to 200 with over 600 people watching. I'm no mathematician.
But you proved that earlier.
That's doable.
Yeah.
Back to your point on that, to say I was far off is absurd. If you go, this guy has a 76% left on base percentage, would you be like, oh, he's getting lucky?
I mean, I set the p-value at 5%, so it was outside scope. You wouldn't
be like, oh man, he's getting real lucky.
Well, I just wouldn't. That hypothesis wouldn't work for me because it was outside of 5%.
All right, suit yourself.
Look, just because you like being wrong and being like, oh, they're numbers, let's fudge it. That's fine for you. That's not that's not the way I operate, brother.
I'd say it's close enough.
Yeah, you know who wouldn't? Anybody else that understands what they're looking at.
Well, that's why I'm hosting. Pittsburgh plus 230. Huge dogs, 8.5 run total. All right, so a couple things. Blake Snell has a K rate that's almost 32%.
Yeah.
Huge K rate. We know that he's proficient in that area. Pittsburgh's 10th highest K rate versus left-handed pitching on their active roster. So, it's not Seattle. It's also not Cleveland. It's a pretty decent matchup. Snell's a huge favorite. Not a bad park as far as pitching goes. How much Snell are you getting to today?
I wish more, but it didn't work for having 100% of you Darvish yesterday. I won $25 back. Yeah, I got $25 back yesterday. One lineup cashed. So I'm going to hope that I had Darvish and everything. He was negative.
Damn.
Yeah. 56% Snell right now. He's very clearly, to me, the best option that you can get to. The strikeout upside is massive. The Pirates aren't good. The park is fantastic. Every single thing is on Blake Snell's side. 30% K rate over the past 2 seasons to lefties, 32% K rate over the past 2 seasons to righties. At best, he gives up, a little bit of power to lefties. I'm not worried about that. There are 3 lefties in the lineup. They're switch hitters today. Get me as much Blake Snell as I can get. And Neil, by the way, I am anti-best ball and I am correct.
Give me 3 things in your life that truly make you happy. I know spending time with your wife is number 1 on the list.
Of things that make me happy?
Yeah.
Oh, God, we're going to have to start somewhere else then. I like coffee.
That makes you happy?
Yes. When I drink my coffee, I am happier than I was before I drank that coffee.
Okay.
Cranking one?
Yeah. Well,
it doesn't make you happy? Oh, what are you using? Tears?
Yeah, no, I mean, hey, go pump off, get you going, and just get tired afterwards. So it's a double-edged sword.
And my third thing is naps and sleeping, which leads right into it.
No, you can't be naps can't make you happy.
The hell they can't.
No, because you're asleep.
You've never had a nocturnal emission?
What? How do you have to take it here? All right.
You just told me that naps aren't happy, as if people don't pop off in their sleep.
I thought you were going to say, yeah, Joseph, like Liverpool. I thought like that gets you excited. I thought you were going to say good food.
Well, yeah, I said coffee and you scoffed at it. So why would I come back with any other food? I think I just nailed this, by the way.
Do you ever get real happy, or are you usually just like never too low, never too high? I feel like you're pretty.
I mean, like, what do you mean? Like, I don't yell like whoopee and yeehaw and stuff if something good happens. I don't know.
You have a blunt affect.
Yeah, I've had too many of them. That's my problem. Too many blunts have affected my life.
All right, coffee.
Yeah, coffee, cranking one out, and naps.
That result in nocturnal emission.
I mean, I haven't had one in a while, but for years I tried pretty hard to like make sure I would have one.
Really?
Who wouldn't?
That's insane.
Why wouldn't you want one? It's the best thing.
So messy.
What do you mean messy? Everything just gets caught. You don't even have to worry about it. It couldn't be less messy.
Rich Hill.
Now, if you sleep in the nude, that's going to be messy. As long as you're not sleeping in the nude, you've got a catcher for all of it. They're great. I highly, highly recommend that if you are even close to hooking up with whoever whatever gal you got in your head when you go to bed, see that one through, man. Just deal with the mess later. It'll be dry by the time you wake up.
It's a bizarre thought. Look,
it's been a decade plus. I wish that they were more frequent. I'd give anything to have one once a week, honestly. I miss
this conversation over.
I wish my buddy Jay were like on this call and can have this conversation, because he and I share the same sort of sentiment regarding the old wet dreams. You want to keep this one going? We have 9 minutes until live before lock.
There is something kind of majestic about it.
I just miss it. I mean, they were so frequent in my youth.
Well, of course.
Yeah. You're just like, I saw a peach today. It's going to be a rough night of sleep.
Yeah, wait till you see 2 peaches. Do you like these San Diego bats against Pittsburgh?
Sorry, what game are we on? San Francisco? Padres?
San Diego. We already talked about Snell. I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on Rich Hill.
No, you don't. Yeah. And we don't have to spend any time on Pirates bats either. I don't mind going to the Padres here. They are 3rd in top stack. I'm a little lighter than that. But the raw talent of Tatis, Soto, Machado, Bogarts, Gary Sanchez, like you can lift off against Rich Hill. Rich Hill, so far this season, has a 220 xISO and a 19% strikeout rate to righties. So, Tatis, all the righties too. 86 park factor to lefties, 96 to righties. Righty power plays up here. So if you're going to the Padres, it's Tatis, it's Machado, it's Bogarts, it's Gary Sanchez, it's Cronenworth. No, it's not Cronenworth. It's Campusano. There's a lot to like for San Diego, but they are a little expensive.
St. Louis and Arizona. We're doing fine with time. Not concerned whatsoever. St. Louis and Arizona. Steven Matz, Merrill Kelly. 9-run total here. Arizona slight favorites at home. Let's talk about Merrill Kelly a little bit. 1% ownership, 7% top 2 probability. Steven Matz, 3% ownership, 5% top 2 play probability in the top stack tool. And when you're talking stacks, feel free to hit on both sides of these, Josh.
Yeah.
St. Louis is what? 5% top stack probability. Arizona's 3.8. St. Louis is even 4.5%. So I mean, they're just it's kind of an average game across the board everywhere.
Yeah, there's no ownership coming into Matz. I think he's a completely reasonable value option at 6,300. I have no interest in going to Merrill Kelly at 9K. If I were going to go anywhere, it's Cardinals bats. They're unowned. 4.5% odds of being a top stack. They're just in that bunch with everybody at the top. The only problem here is that the Arizona park plays down power. And Merrill Kelly is solid. But if you want a contrarian option, I like going to St. Louis, or also not getting all that much ownership. I don't mind going to the Arizona side against Steven Matz either. Both of these pitchers are like good enough, and the park limits enough power. But both of these teams are getting a little bit less ownership than they should. There are no priorities in this game at all, but I do think the bats are at least a little interesting.
But overall, it's just not one of those games that jumps off the board.
No, it does the opposite of that. Man, chat is on one now.
Right, yeah, you got him started, dude.
What did I do?
Hard on nocturnal emissions with 10 minutes to go. It's my mistake for asking you what makes you genuinely happy.
If I woke up just covered in it tonight, I would be that. You'll get it. I will post that to Twitter in the morning.
You're gonna look like Randy Marsh when he finally gets on a computer.
I pray, dude. It's gonna look like I just got off the assembly line at Krispy Kreme.
You know what I'm talking about, right? You know,
I sure do. I sure do.
Where he's just like, oh,
yeah.
I thought you were gonna say your wife, your dogs, and
so that is a mistake.
Your dogs, yeah.
Dogs singular. Dog plural, no. I love my pug, but that dude sucks.
So the dog's right below your wife.
Depends on the day.
I'm just busting your balls.
I mean, I would say she could be sitting next to me. She'd get the same response. I'm pretty confident she would choose the dog over me. So,
and your neighbors are a top 3.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oakland is a plus 210 dog.
We did come together as a neighborhood a couple days ago. No jokes there. One of our friends' dogs got out and went zipping past the house, chasing after some deer. So we all were out in the front yard trying to corral the dog.
Hunt them down.
Yeah, we did good work.
Good.
Yeah, I used my dog as bait, and then it didn't work.
And they say there's no community anymore. I don't buy it. My neighborhood's pretty tight knit, dude, and I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I was sitting at the table, and all of a sudden, Ollie just zips by our house, front yard, and evidently was chasing 2 deer that I didn't see. And I was like, well, Ollie's not supposed to be doing that. So I need to get out there and try and grab this dog. Giant doodle, whatever the hell, massive thing. Oh, it's not fun.
Brody. Put it on the screen. Brody coming in hot. Look at the screen. Oh man.
There should be a smile from ear to ear for that picture.
There absolutely should.
No, I mean, I shouldn't be frowning in it.
I know exactly what you mean.
You're sad
how much
2 minutes after, not 2 seconds after.
Right. I don't know how much we got to talk about Alex Cobb, but he's 28% owned. The only real question I have for you is top two probability on its top stack tool or top pitchers tool is 12%.
Yeah.
So do you think he's overowned? Because it is objectively a very good matchup. He's a huge favorite as well. Grabbing the win here is very likely. Lots of strikeouts in this lineup. We've seen so many pitchers all season just mow down this Oakland team, and he's 7,600.
Yeah. I don't think he's overowned. I think it's very clearly the exact opposite. Let me look at this lineup quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so they are running out 6 lefties. Cobb's only striking out 13% of those guys this year, but it's not like he's given up power to them. Still only a 144x ISO. 29% K rate to righties. If you add in last year, it just sort of brings both of those to like a neutral mark. The A's are terrible. There's no power threat in this park at all. There's basically not a lot of power threats on the A's outside of Seth Brown, who's got the 202 projected ISO. I think Alex Cobb at his salary is the best pitching play on the slate today. He is my most exposed pitcher. Every sign points to me wanting to get to more Alex Cobb. I think he's getting slept on. I don't care about the lefty A's bats because they're the A's. If he's just not having a great time against average lefty A's, these guys aren't even average. So give me all the Alex Cobb you can get.
Man, props to Brody for whipping that together real quick.
I do love it. I do love it.
That's great. Yeah. Oh man, that was a great episode too. I think that was that the one where they went out the California way? Someone in chat will be able to tell me. Where like they all go to California. I can't remember why, but like they lost internet and he found the computer and just heavy pumped off, as you can see. Any interest? Well, I don't really want to spend a lot of time on Oakland, but San Francisco bats today. The lineup generator was coming up with a decent amount of San Francisco stacks against Waldachuk. And he's live to give up some power, but this is also a park that's going to be pretty forgiving to pitchers as well. Yeah. So how do you come to terms with all of that, looking at the matchup, but also the bad park for hitters?
I mean, one, up against the lefty, you're more likely to see guys getting pinch hit for San Francisco. They have no problem doing that. Yeah. I don't think they're the number one value. I think that's pretty hard to do on a 12-game slate to be the top value team, even in San Francisco. I have them 6th in value. I don't want to get to the Giants. 82 park factor to righties, 87 to lefties. Waldachuk's fine. He's more likely to just put guys on with walks. I don't think he's really going to lose too much to power. I don't really want to get to the Giants here. I think this is a tough spot for San Francisco.
Thanks to you guys getting us north of 200 likes, by the way. Love it. Most appreciated. Toronto and the Dodgers. Let's wrap this up.
Let's do it.
Before we do, though, shout out to some fine people that just had some monster wins using the stochastic tools. When they hit us up in Stochastic Hall of Fame, Josh, on Twitter, rocking the avatar, hit us up, tweet at us. It's our job to shout them out. We just saw some huge wins lately that makes me very happy. Elway's Army, I just saw him in chat. Congrats, dude. I saw the huge, was it a 20K win to Elway's Army? Well, no.
It was like 2 days back to back or something like that, basically.
Yeah, and in the one where he won 20K, he finished first for 20K, second for 2K, fifth for 2K, 23rd, 45th, 73rd, and then he hit PGA using the tools for 2,500 the next day, which was awesome. Our own Jake Hari hit for 8,300 using the lineup simulator tool. We had Schaefer, I feel like he's in the Hall of Fame all the time, repping these tools. He said, love the new simulator tool. It's stochastic, takes building MME lineups to the next level. He had another $2,500 win here. Those were all lineup simulator. And then the lineup generator, which I told you, all the links to everything, by the way, generator, 50% off all the packages, or the lineup simulator, 50% off the generator, $4.58 for the first week. Melvin Mayo, $1,000, Josh, first place in the solo shot. By the way, when you're looking at this, keep in mind what entries these are. Jake took that 5K in a mini max. Yeah. Melvin took it with the lineup generator, $1,000 in the solo shot. Kennedy Mathis on Twitter hit us up, said the lineup generator paid for itself, $1,000 in the mega mini max. Like a lot of these are $1 entries, and the stochastic avatars are shipping them. So it's a good thing to see. It's a very good
I love seeing it. When waking up, the only thing better than waking up and seeing that I am in first is getting tagged in a bunch of stuff that people shipped. It's great.
Especially when it's like, hey, okay, we talk about these tools and we use them on the show. When people are like, hey, they work, here's proof that that makes me feel a lot better, especially when I'm talking about them. But yeah, links to everything in the description. You guys play it however you want. It can be confusing because we have some a la carte stuff, but it makes it easier for you in the long run. You find which one you want the most, you like the most, whether it's Stochastic plus Platinum, which gets you the lineup generator, or you just want to, you're a little tight in the pockets right now. Lineup generator's $458 for the first week, or you want to pony up for the lineup simulator. That takes it to an entirely different level. But I think judging from the screenshots, it is worth it. All right, Toronto and the Dodgers. Let me toss this one over to you. I'm not sure how much there is to get into with two good offenses. Chris Bassett, Julio Urias on the mound. He got tuned up last game. He's also probably just too expensive for this matchup.
Yeah, he is. That price tag is just really problematic against the amount of power that exists for Toronto. And it's power in a place where you don't want to be giving that up. 125 park factor to righties for in LA, 121 to lefties. You can't get away with that. 9 righties probably for the Blue Jays. I don't know if that lineup has come out. I can't go to Urias. And I even at 7,500 for Bassett, he's a solid enough pitcher. I don't want to go up against the Dodgers in LA. That's a very problematic spot. If I'm getting to anything here, it's the bats. 12th in ownership for the Dodgers, 16th for the Blue Jays. You're just buying talent in this game at relatively low ownership on a big slate.
Man, you guys are the best. Appreciate you hanging out. Fun show as always, dude. Fun show as always.
We had fun.
We always do. Follow Josh at Josh Engleman, me at Lafayette_D. Shout out to Jordan Klein for producing this one. I got to tell you, man, that X on Twitter, when there's a notification and it's red, I looked at it, I was like, why in the heck is xvideos.com up on my computer? I don't.
You're like, oh no, did I get a DM on the porn site?
Yeah. Oh no, I'm about to be very happy.
Do you have an account?
What?
Do you have an account?
No, I don't. I probably should. I
highly recommend it.
I feel like I've crossed. I've gone too far. So it's like it's a mental block. I'm like can't sign up.
No, you have to, because you want you want a record of your stuff. You want your history, because I run out of the keywords. It's like, all right, stepsister, aunt, amateur, feet. It's just it's like, I can't find it anymore. They moved them around.
I spent way too long a day trying to find stuff. Be like, damn it must have been removed. Yeah. All right. We'll see you guys back here. Greg and Neil coming up next. Thank you for watching. Have a great night. Good luck. And we'll see you back here on the Strategy Show at 10 a.m. tomorrow.
What is happening, everybody? It is Tuesday and a pretty exciting day over here. We got a 12-game baseball slate to break down. Big contests over at DraftKings. They've got the 1-1-1 contest, paying out $100,000 first place, exactly 5,000 people in that field. So excited about that. We're sponsored by BetMGM today. We have a great offer. If you sign up at BetMGM using the link that we have below, you do get yourself 1 free month of Stochastic Plus Platinum. So if you're looking to get access to all of our tools and data for cheap, go sign up at BetMGM. Use the link that we have below. Also, Neil Orfield has a big day coming up tomorrow in honor of what tomorrow's big day is going to be. He is dressed as if he's going to be working at the Good Burger with Keenan and Kel over there. But Neil, explain the outfit to everybody and why tomorrow is such a big day for you.
Yeah, well, after the show, I'm going to make some burgers. So I'm wearing my best burger guy suit. I was curious if anybody would get this reference, Greg, and you totally missed it. But Josh immediately knew what the reference was. Tomorrow I'm turning 40. So this is the Mike Gundy outfit from his news conference where he declared, "I'm a man. I'm 40. Don't attack." I forget. I just listened to the whole clip again. I was going to memorize it and then I didn't do that. I just the only line I remember is I'm a man. I'm 40. He says a lot of funny things though in the clip, like talking about downgrading players. I don't know. It's a great clip. If you have not yet watched the Mike Gundy "I'm a man. I'm 40" clip. So yeah, that's the only way that I can think of like what 40-year-olds dress like is this outfit. So this is probably the only thing you're going to see me wearing for the next year.
So do you feel like you're more of a man? Like, is 39 isn't what is if 39 isn't a man? What is 39 then?
Just a kid. When you're 39, I mean, you're not quite a man. And I'm 39 right now, so I don't really know how different I'm going to feel tomorrow.
All right, I'm interested. I have a feeling your back is going to hurt.
My back always hurts. So yeah, that would be nothing new.
All right, so looking forward to Neil turning 40. Any big plans for the 40th birthday?
So my wife is actually going out of town tomorrow morning, so I'm going to wake up and drive her to the airport. And then in the evening, I'll be going out with my family. We're going to a restaurant in St. Paul. The rare time, they all live in the western suburbs of the Twin Cities, and I live in St. Paul, which is east of Minneapolis. So it's the rare time I can get them to come to my side of the river.
All right, so big day for Neil. Going to be turning. Do we be doing content stuff tomorrow, or do you have the day off?
I'm going to be doing a tight end stream where, with Gajeski. We're going to talk about his tight end rankings for best ball. I'll be doing my lineup generator VOD. Not on a ton of content tomorrow.
So, I mean, I have heard that a lot of people do celebrate their 40th birthday with tight ends. Maybe not in quite the same way that you were going to, but hey, 40 tomorrow, Neil. Going to be good stuff. So everybody check out what Neil is going to be doing tomorrow on his shows and support it. It's going to be his 40th birthday. But I know what Neil wants for his 40th birthday more than anything is for you guys to sign up at BetMGM using that link we have below so that you guys can get yourself the present of 1 free month of Stochastic Plus Platinum. Also, don't forget to check out our podcast channel. If you guys ever want to listen to our content on the go download, or I should say subscribe to the Stochastic Daily Fantasy podcast channel, because then if you're listening to our strategy shows or you want to in the car or whatever, then you get access to it. And also leave us a review while you're there. Stuff like that helps keep our content free, and we do appreciate it. Neil, one thing I think we should talk about right at the top here, some weather concerns. How much you've been looking at the weather for today? Because there are a couple of games that are pretty hairy from a weather standpoint. We've got the Red Sox-Braves game, which right now the tarp is on the field. The Red Sox have really been lagging putting out their lineup, which I think is just because they're like, hey, the weather is shitty. And maybe this isn't a fair thing to say, but the way I kind of read it is if they're looking at the weather and being like, hey, this doesn't look great. Like, why do we even need to put our lineup out to really get guys, warmed up for the game? I think that game's probably a little bit more likely to cancel than to play. That's a game that I'm pretty concerned about. We've got Yankees and Mets, a little bit of concern there as well, although not quite as much. The one I really have my eye on, Red Sox, Braves. We do have the Braves with a really high chance to be a top scoring team on the slate against Nick Pivetta. So I'm wondering, what are you looking at from a weather standpoint? Because I'm kind of leaning towards taking that game out of my player pool.
Yeah, this is such a crappy situation to have two of the top batting stacks on the slate in a game where there is major weather concern. I think that's totally reasonable to take it out of your pool. I think in general, maybe I'll play a couple. I'm only playing 20 lineups tonight. I might play a couple. I think I would like to only have Braves or Red Sox in full stacks. I'm not playing the pitchers anyway from that game. So I think, Charlie Morton actually looked okay in the top pitchers too. I actually got some of him in the lineup generator earlier, but I think that I'm just going to X out the pitchers. And if I'm playing bats here, I'm not playing any one-offs. I'm going all in playing the stacks in that game. But in general, yeah, I'm going to be like, I would love to play the Braves, like in particular, and the Red Sox to a lesser extent. But it definitely is kind of, I'm afraid to go too all in on either of the teams.
And the other one too, the Rockies Nationals game, for two reasons. Number one, there's bad weather in the area. The other thing too is throughout the years, we've always seen the Nationals make very bizarre decisions when it comes to the rain and weather. And we've seen games get canceled just because there's a chance of rain in the forecast and doesn't even end up raining at all. So if we get any kind of word that that game is going to start late, I have massive concerns about that game. It's a big slate. We've got 12 spots to look at, or 12 games here. So I'm kind of inclined to leave out any spots that are going to have any sort of weather concerns. We've got a couple of them here. And then even if they play, I'm just going to hope they don't really go and pop off and go crazy. So we'll keep you guys abreast of the situation as we go along. And if you have any questions for us, I see Ryan Rennebaum has left us a super chat. And anybody else who's in Discord watching that wants to ask a question at me, we could hit that over the course of the show. But first, Ryan wants to know, or actually doesn't want to know. I assumed this was a question, but it's not a question. It's really just a comment. He says, Neil, driver's license pick, or you're actually turning 50. Something else I'll add is I believe he might want your social security number with that driver's license photo.
Yeah, I'm trying to decide if it's a bad idea. If there's anything on my driver's license,
you probably shouldn't show your driver's license on a show.
I was thinking, Mike, maybe here's what I can do. Here, if I can just do this, can you? It's not going to work. I was going to show you just my birthday. Maybe I'll take a photo of just the birthday later. But sorry, Ryan, I don't need to prove to you. My body knows that I'm not 40 yet.
Yeah, those are the hands of a 39-year-old man about to turn 40. How about that?
Could you see my hand? Like I was looking at the screen. I was like, I couldn't even see what my hand was looking at. So
yeah, I couldn't really see anything. I just saw you were holding kind of something and it was blurry. It was very hard to make out, but there we go. So you know how we know that this is how we identified that Neil is turning 40? A lack of understanding of technology. So there we go. He's confirmed that he's 40 because whatever it is he was trying to do with his camera there made absolutely no sense in the world at all. So Ryan, I agree. I think Neil's the real deal here. I think he's actually turning 40.
Thank you. Well, Ryan was suggesting that I'm 50, which maybe that's actually supporting his argument.
That too. I'd be curious. Ryan, follow up. Don't leave a super chat. Just follow up. Let me know, why is it that you believe that Neil is actually turning 50 and not turning 40? And whatever comment you leave in there, I will read it off within reason. If we head on over to the Discord channel, just making sure that there aren't any questions that have come in yet. And we do have one right off the bat. It is from Gang Green, who just wants to know if he's playing one lineup for single entry, what should it be? So I'm about to rework my player pool to take out some of these bad weather scenarios. But looking at our top stacks tool, now, if you're only playing one lineup, but keep in mind, single entry. So we do have to make some sort of assumptions about which teams are going to be the more popular in those kind of tournaments. If you're making one lineup for single entry, which team would you be stacking today?
Yeah, it's a really tough question today. Probably it would be the Dodgers for me, coming in at 5% ownership. Sorry, 3% ownership, 5% chance of being the top stack. I really like the Dodgers in general, and we just don't have those weather concerns. It would have been Atlanta, but with the weather concerns, probably I'm going to switch over to the Dodgers as my top stack. How about you?
I have a bunch of the Guardians right now against Zach Greinke. I mean, Greinke is just absolute garbage as a pitcher. And I know that we don't have them as being a team that's, particularly like crazy positively leveraged. But keep in mind, too, when we're talking about single entry, there's a lot of ownership right now going to the Chicago Cubs. I'm curious to see what ends up happening with the Boston Red Sox, because we're expecting them to be really popular as well. But with all the ownership going to the Cubs right now, we have them projected for 12.4% ownership as a team. That's more than 50% ownership than any other team on the entire slate. I tend to think the Cubs ownership is going to be so massive in single entry that kind of every other team is going to be somewhat contrarian. So the Guardians are a team that I'm getting to a good amount of right now. I expect I'm going to even more of them as I take some of these weather concerns out of my player pool. So yeah, Guardians against Zach Greinke. It's a spot that I like.
I like that one quite a bit as well. That's actually, as I told you before we came on the stream, I was drafting some lineups, and the Guardians are like going unowned in the underdog drafts I was drafting. So happy to add some of those to my stacks.
All right, and then we got another question in here from Heflove. He wants to know, what's the best way to quick change lineups to react to when you use the lineup generator? swap Acuna for Tatis or Betts, etc.? Is there a simpler method? Yeah, I think you just have to use the swap tool within it, right? So there is something that when we get to the lineup generator, we'll pull it up, we'll build some lineups in it, and we could definitely remove some players. But the easiest way to do it is right in the tool. You could swap out individual players and it'll show you, you know, what the projections of similarly priced players are. And that to me is the best way to do it. Do you have a better solution, Neil?
No, I think that sounds like the best way.
All right. And another question here. Justin, Just Locks in our Discord channel wants to know, what pitcher for FanDuel GPP do you and I like? So let's go ahead and start talking about the pitching options for today, and starting with FanDuel. So we're answering Justin's question right here. If you could only play one pitcher today in a single entry over on FanDuel, who would be that one pitcher?
All right. I think, yeah, it'd probably just be Pablo Lopez. He is our top pitcher in terms of top odds of being the best pitcher on the slate, and he's less expensive than Corbin Burnes and Blake Snell, and still getting less ownership than Corbin Burnes. So I think it'd probably be Pablo Lopez for me, unless you can get to something great by going to Alex Cobb. It'll be Lopez would be my number one choice. How about you?
Pablo Lopez is the pitcher I got the most exposure to running lineups on both FanDuel and DraftKings. And yeah, I don't think that he's better, say, than a Blake Snell or a Corbin Burnes. But one thing that our top pitchers tool does bear out is that the range of outcomes is pretty similar for these pitchers. And Pablo Lopez is a pitcher shown to have a lot of upside this year, especially in the strikeout department. So with that in mind, you know, we're looking at Blake Snell at, let's see, a 7.4% chance to be a top scoring pitcher. Corbin Burnes, 7.3%. Pablo Lopez, 7.7%. But a couple things here. Number one, Pablo Lopez is less popular than Corbin Burnes. And then as far as Blake Snell, he's $1,000 cheaper. So I think all three of them are good options. But I do lean towards Pablo Lopez when you are considering that he's $1,000 less expensive than Blake Snell over on FanDuel. Six for the question. He's saying he had all of the Braves for DFS today. Cash. Let's see. So he's saying, I'm trying to figure out what he means when stuff is in parentheses. He had all the Braves for DFS today. Talking about cash on DK. With the weather concerns, it's better to avoid the Braves. Should he go Cubs heavy? Must plays for DFS. Okay, so for cash games, yeah, the Cubs are going to be so popular. Ride with the Cubs. I wouldn't play the Braves in cash games today.
Yeah, I would not take on that risk. It's just not necessary on a slate this size. I would just X out all of the weather games for cash game for sure.
And then Neil following, oh my God, Neil giving away his social security number in the YouTube chat. If you guys aren't in YouTube,
people were asking for it.
Yeah, go log in there. We've already had, Neil has done a poor job of revealing his driver's license during the show, and now he has done a better job of revealing his social security number. So if you guys, for whatever reason, want to steal Neil's identity, if you too would like to be a 49-year-old that does DFS shows, go ahead and go check out the YouTube chat, and you could steal Neil's identity right now. Let's talk about the rest of the pitching options today, because we talked about the high-end options. Pablo Lopez, Blake Snell, well, not like in-depth we talked about all of them, but I think all three of them are good options. I do like, for tournament purposes, Pablo Lopez the most on DraftKings, just because same thing we talk about with FanDuel, the range of outcomes for these pitchers is really similar. FanDuel, you're getting Pablo Lopez at a depressed price point. On DraftKings, though, you're getting lesser ownership. He is 23% owned on DraftKings. Blake Snell, 35% on, 41% for Corbin Burnes. If we have these guys projected similarly, just give me Pablo Lopez for the least amount of ownership. Is that where you're at as well on DK?
Yeah, not surprisingly, somebody said it in chat, Neil, it's a proud homer. That is true. But I don't even need to be a homer. Like the numbers support it in this case. Pablo Lopez being the top pitcher. He is our top pitcher in terms of top two pitcher odds, and still getting lower ownership than all of Snell, Burnes, and Cobb. I guess he is the most expensive. I was going to say he's less expensive on DraftKings. He is the most expensive of the group, but still getting lesser ownership as a result. So I'm going to lean into my Twins homerism and say Pablo Lopez, number one for me on DraftKings as well as FanDuel. After Pablo Lopez, I don't know who the next three in our top pitcher odds is really interesting to me, between Snell, Burnes, and Cobb, which is obviously a different tier in terms of pricing. It would probably be Lopez number one for me. Probably still just probably right in the order that we actually have it. Lopez, Snell, then maybe Cobb, and then Burnes. But those four, they're the clear, to me, the clear top four pitchers that I'm interested in on this slate. How do you like the pitchers at the top?
Yeah. So one thing I need to rerun my lineups with, because now I'm recognizing that I have to be prepared for both situations, is I really liked getting to Charlie Morton as a contrarian option with the ownership
Right.
that's going to the Boston Red Sox. But with all the weather concerns there, especially for pitchers, because there's a very high risk of that game, being, even if it plays, there's a very high risk of it being delayed midway through, which News got it posted in the YouTube chat before as well. So with that in mind, I want to minimize that kind of risk for myself. And I'm rerunning lineups by just taking those games out of the player pool and kind of seeing what ends up popping up. So the answer for me was going to be Charlie Morton, but now not something I could give an answer to with quite the same amount of confidence level, because I just don't like the weather in that kind of scenario. So you got three guys at the top that I think are pretty clearly the overall best options on the slate in Corbin Burnes, Blake Snell, and Pablo Lopez. Where things get interesting with Alex Cobb is he's in the easiest matchup really possible, because he's against the Oakland A's. He's also at home. So you got the easiest matchup and the best park available there. So Alex Cobb, who's also shown, strikeout ability over the course of his career, if we're going to save salary with him, I know he's fairly popular, 30% ownership. I think it's completely reasonable, though, when you consider the matchup. I think he's very safe. He's somebody who, for cash games, I think based on ownership, you probably just want to go with Blake Snell and Corbin Burnes over on DraftKings. But if you needed to save salary, Alex Cobb is pretty clearly the salary saving option to get to if you're going for cheap. And also, we have him projected as the fourth best pitcher on the entire slate right now. The only pitchers we have projected better are Lopez, Snell, Burnes, Cobb. So I think the ownership there is perfectly warranted. And it kind of seems like that's where you're leaning as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a 1,600 price difference between Cobb and Burnes, the next cheapest pitcher above him in terms of top two pitcher odds. Yeah, as you said, he just feels so safe. Nobody's really safe in baseball, but like as far as pitchers go in baseball, he feels pretty safe at this 7,600 price tag. The chalk makes it. I mean, 30% ownership seems completely reasonable to me. I'm going to be playing a lot of 7,600 Alex Cobb. Haven't looked at his price tag on FanDuel. I'm curious if it's similarly low. Certainly you can play him there. Apparently need to refresh.
Over on FanDuel, Alex Cobb is $8,900, which relatively isn't as cheap as it is on DraftKings, but it's still a little bit too cheap for him. So he's projected for 15% ownership. Of all the pitchers we have on FanDuel, he is the only pitcher sub 10K that's projected for more than 6% ownership.
Yeah, I don't think you need to go there on FanDuel. Just looking at it, he's coming in at 15% ownership with a 6% chance of being the top pitcher. I'd rather just go to one of the better plays there.
If you're looking to be contrarian at pitcher, how do you even do it today? Because there are very good pitching options today. The problem is it's very grouped together. All the guys we've talked about so far, Pablo Lopez, Blake Snell, Corbin Burnes, Alex Cobb, I think these are all great pitching options. Aaron Savali is also picking up some ownership at 22%. It's solely due to the matchup against the Kansas City Royals. If you're looking to be safe at pitcher, cool, go with him. I like the other chalk pitching options a little bit better, though. Do you see any reasonable way to be contrarian at pitcher? Because I do think the best options are so much better than everything else.
I mean, depending on what you consider contrarian, George Kirby at 11% ownership looks really good to me against the Twins, who strike out a lot. This is a spot, and I know Adam was making a joke about it yesterday, liking all sides of the game. I like all sides of this game, the Twins Seattle game. George Kirby, I think I'd like to play him a lot in lineups where I'm not playing the Twins, twin stack. So Kirby looks great. The Twins strike out a lot. He's only 8,700. He's a fine strikeout pitcher. He has a history of being a better strikeout pitcher. So I think, hopefully strikeouts could come back a little bit, and he's getting just 11% ownership. So I do think that there is a lot of upside to Kirby. Domingo Germán at 4% ownership, I suppose, is kind of interesting. He looks great in the top stacks. 4% ownership, 11% chance of being a top two pitcher. So you could certainly go to Domingo Germán as well. As you said, Savali, it's a great matchup. He's 7,200, getting a little bit more ownership than I'd like. So, not the best spot. Under 1% ownership to Merrill Kelly is pretty interesting. Coming in with a 7% chance of being a top two pitcher at 1% ownership. I guess you could go there. I mean, there are a lot of sort of interesting options. It's just that the top guys look so good that it's a little bit hard to want to go down to a 9,000 Merrill Kelly, but that it is a way to get contrarian.
If I wanted to be really crazy, I would say maybe just for leverage in the largest of large field tournaments, I would say Michael Kopech, just because we've got the Cubs projected for so much more ownership than any other team, right? Cubs projected for right around 12.5% ownership as a stack. The next most popular team is the Red Sox at 8%. That game might not even play. We've got the Cubs as being the most overowned team on offense by a mile. Michael Kopech was like a chalky pitching option a month ago, and then he's had, some downturn, and people aren't quite as high on him now. I'm definitely not as high on him by any means, but if you want to be just crazy contrarian a pitcher and get some leverage that way, I would say go to Michael Kopech, but I kind of like just gravitating towards the chalk at pitcher. I don't really have much issue with it today.
Yeah, I mean, in general, we've talked about it many times. We're okay eating chalk, particularly when it makes sense. And I think today it makes sense to eat some chalk. As I said, I'm willing to go to George Kirby. So he's a little bit, you're saving a little bit of ownership on Kirby at 11% ownership, but there's not that many pitchers that you really need to go to necessarily. But yeah, I think Kopech, a good call out. I think Kelly is somebody you could consider playing. Kirby, somebody you consider playing. But for the most part, eating a lot of chalk there with those top four.
Yeah, see some people talking about the Pirates in chat yesterday. One thing that was super tilting about yesterday's slate, I had one live lineup that had a chance to win tournaments. It was a Pirate stack, and it had Marcano in it, and he blew out his knee doing nothing yesterday. So it was I had this one lineup. It was oh, look, I've got these players Carlos Santana was in it, and he was 0.7% owned. So all these crazy low owned players. And then Marcano goes and blows out his knee by rounding the bases there. So a little bit tilting there as I see people talking about different players they had in and out of different Pirate stacks. So let's look at it this way, Neil. If you had to play one contrarian pitcher who's expensive, who would it be? And then one cheap one. And we'll go back and forth. So you're picking one contrarian spend up option. Who's the guy you're rolling with?
You want to give me a cutoff for what qualifies as contrarian?
Yeah, anything sub 20%. I mean,
okay.
I could say anything sub 12% owned, and that covers everybody who isn't Savali, Cobb, Burns, Snell, Lopez.
I want to know if George Kirby I want to make sure, first of all, that Pablo Lopez at 22% didn't qualify, which I assumed he wouldn't. Then it would be Kirby for me at the high end. How about you?
It's going to be Andrew Abbott for me, just based on his upside. He's pitching against the Milwaukee Brewers, who have not had the best offense this year. And then also, Abbott is a young pitcher who has just been really interesting from a DFS standpoint because of that kind of strikeout potential we've seen out of him. Abbott this year, 2.1 ERA. He's not going to maintain that. The underlying numbers, a lot of luck. He's a 192 BABIP, for sure going to regress. But even if you take the 2.1 ERA out of consideration, he's a 3.44 expected ERA, a 4.07 FIB. But he's a 26.8% strikeout rate against a team that can be prone to striking out. So if I'm going to be going contrarian on the high end, Andrew Abbott is the one that I think offers the most upside because of the strikeout ability. Now, on the other side, if you're going to be going cheap and being contrarian at pitcher, who'd be the one guy you'd call out?
You mentioned Kopech as somebody that you can play. I guess you consider Kopech. Don't love playing Bassett against the Dodgers. Yeah, it's probably just Kopech for me.
Yeah, it's going to, my answer is Kopech, and solely one of the ones just due to ownership and the way that our projections are bearing out how overowned we think the Cubs are as a stack. So pulling up the top stacks tool, and I'll refresh it just to see if anything's changed in the last couple of minutes with all the weather scenarios, because I do think this is a slate where we could see a lot of ownership changes in the last, 10, 15 minutes heading into lock because of that weather. And yeah, we currently have the Cubs projected for 13% ownership now as a team, and we are starting to see Boston and Atlanta dip a little bit in terms of ownership. As a result, the Guardians are now the second most popular team. That's probably going to lower my exposure to them. But yeah, we've got the Cubs 12.9% projected ownership with a 6.5% chance to be the top scoring team in the entire slate. With that in mind, just give me Kopech for no reason other than the Cubs being well overowned.
Yep, I like that call.
Anything else you want to add at pitcher for today, Neil?
I don't think so. I think that we've covered all of the pitchers that I'm really interested in playing. I think we've Verlander, I guess you could play against the Yankees, but no, I think we've largely covered all the pitchers I want to.
All right. So we got some questions coming in about stacks, and I see all your guys' questions. Corey, I see your super chat. I'm going to answer that in a second, but first I want to build some lineups in the lineup generator, and then we'll talk about some of our favorite stacks for the day and get to all of your guys' questions about the stacks that you want to talk about. Jordan Klein, do us a favor. Yeah, fire up the MLB lineup generator. So the MLB lineup generator, if you guys have not checked it out yet, it is super cheap and affordable tool. You sign up for the first time using the link we have below, less than $5 access to the lineup generator. And not only do you have the potential to just build lineups in this that are already built for you, you could upload directly to DraftKings and FanDuel, up to 20 of them, but also something a lot of people have found a lot of success doing. Like, for instance, we saw Kennedy Mathis tweet us the other day. Kennedy, he said, lineup generator has already paid for itself. You see, he came in third in the Mega Mini Max, won $1,000. So just so like less than $5. And we saw Kennedy win $1,000 off of that less than $5 investment that he made in our lineup generator here. So a couple things you could do. You could just play the lineups that are in here, or if you want to play more, if you want to hand build some lineups, you could build out a handful of lineups here and just kind of build some hand-built lineups based on the players you're getting the most exposure to in here. But let's go all stack types, Jordan, and go balance because it's a bigger slate. And one thing that I think we could do also here is don't go and like skip or anything yet. When we get to lineups here, when we find a lineup that just has like a couple of Braves or Red Sox players, let's go in and edit one of those lineups so we could show people that work. It's not something we do a whole lot of typically here, but I think that this is a slate where we could do it. It'll be a little bit of a pain to do it when we have four. So like, let's find a lineup that only has like 1 or 2 Braves or Red Sox in it.
I like this idea.
Let's see. Not that one. Next.
There's Acuna. There we go.
Acuna. So let's edit Acuna so you guys can just see how it works. So if you guys choose to swap a player here, you're going to get a list of options of players who are priced around them. You'll see what our projection is, both in terms of fantasy points and then also in terms of ownership. So right here, where I'd look at the players we have priced around, we've got the next best projection here on Fernando Tatis. His ownership isn't all that crazy. So let's swap Acuna out for Tatis in this one particular lineup, just so we show people how this feature of it works. And then, yeah, you'll see that that'll be changed there. Now, just go through, save and discard some lineups, Jordan, and then we will go ahead and look at what is standing out after. I'm also throwing into chat the Boston weather.
Good thing.
And people saying Cleveland keeps showing up, Malukar. And yeah, that was also my result using the Sims tools. I was getting to a bunch of Cleveland, and I just ran another set of lineups now that I took the weather game out, and see what I ended up getting to with that. But in terms of what we have here, a whole bunch of Cleveland. We actually didn't get to a ton of Atlanta or Boston, which I like considering the weather, but a lot of Cleveland, some San Diego, some Washington, another Washington spot where I'm kind of also, you know, a little bit of wary of the weather. By the way, Joe K says that he has Fantasy Cruncher. He wants to know the difference of lineup generator. Yeah. So lineup generator is, you don't really have customization here, right? It's lineups that are going to be built for you. They're lineups that we're projecting to be plus EV. So Joe, it's really a matter of how much do you want to be in control of the lineups that you are building, right? Fantasy Cruncher is way more customization abilities. You can set your individual exposures per player. Also, you can only build up to 20 lineups in the lineup generator. So it kind of depends, I would say, how advanced of a DFS player you are and how much customization you are. If you're more of a startup player, I think lineup generator is the tool for you. But if you're using our data, tools, player projections, ownership projections, and Fantasy Cruncher, and you really want to be able to build out, say, 150 lineups and more customization, that is where I would say that Fantasy Cruncher is probably better. So the main difference between the two is really just the level of skill, I would say, and how many lineups you're looking to play. I know, Neil, you do a lineup generator video every day. What would you also say is some of the major differences between the two?
Yeah, no, I think you nailed the biggest one. Is just like Fantasy Cruncher is, if you want more customization, you definitely want Fantasy Cruncher. If you're newer to DFS, I would say lineup generator is perfect as a way to just like get good lineups and also to see what good lineups look like. So in Fantasy Cruncher, you need to kind of know what you're doing. Like you need to have kind of a baseline for what you're doing. It's more customizable. So a lot of pros, would rather play in Fantasy Cruncher. But if you are newer to DFS, lineup generator is perfect for you. As I said, just for as a learning tool, or just like I want to have 20 good lineups. Like these have all been vetted for you. They've been run through these stochastic sims, and we found them to be plus EV lineups. It's also just a great time saver. Like it takes a little bit more time if you're trying to use an optimizer. You can make 20 lineups in the lineup generator in 30 seconds, and then you can delete any you don't want, go back, find others. So kind of different pros and cons for different levels of players. I would generally say if you are a beginner to DFS, I'd check out the lineup generator. If you are a little bit more experienced, you want to have the ability to customize a little bit more, then I would use an opto like Fantasy Cruncher.
Now let's go ahead and look at these lineups in terms of the pitcher exposure. A lot of Corbin Burns, a lot of Blake Snell, a lot of Alex Cobb. None of that is stunning to me whatsoever. Those are three of the best pitching options on the slate. Pablo Lopez, another one also there that is going to be something that is going to show up. I assume if we scroll down a little bit more, Aaron Savali in there. As far as hitters going, no shock. We're getting to the most Guardian stacks, so we're getting to a lot of Guardians, but the Guardians that we're getting the most exposure to individually are Jose Ramirez, Andres Jimenez, Ahmed Rosario, Steven Kwan, Will Brennan, Josh Bell. So if you're looking to try to prioritize which Guardians that are looking the best in the lineup generator, there you have it right there. Ramirez, Jimenez, Rosario, Kwan, Brennan, Bell. In that order, those are the ones that are standing out the most. Anything else you want to add here before we check out FanDuel, Neil?
No, yeah, I'm actually using right now using lineup generator to redo my own lineups because we had some lineups came in a little bit different than expected. So the settings that I'm using, just for anybody who's interested, I'm doing full stacks just because I don't want to worry about one-offs from the weather games, and I'm actually using contrarian stacks on this slate partially because I want to avoid some of the Braves, which I guess maybe I don't need to because maybe they're not as chalky as I was expecting them to be. But I'm using full stacks today.
All right. So let's go ahead then and go check out the FanDuel side of things. And same deal. By the way, EMAC just said Nats game delayed. But I'm absolutely scared shitless of this game now. This team does really weird things with weather. The fact the game is delayed, I have very minimal confidence that they're going to play. I'm just going to take it out of my player pool. There's a bunch of games on the slate. Just give me any other game on a 12-game slate where I don't think there's weather concerns. I'd feel differently if this was like a 3 or 4 game slate. A slate of this size, though, I'm going to be a little bit more risk adverse with it.
It's also not like the best game on the slate. So like with the Braves game, I'm a little bit more concerned, a little more hesitant to completely remove it. The Nationals Rockies game, I think you're totally fine just taking that out of your player pool.
So let's go and look at what we're getting to on FanDuel. And here's where things are going to be different, right? DraftKings, we're getting to a ton of the Guardians. We're still getting to them on FanDuel, not quite as much, though. Most roster team here is San Francisco, followed by Cleveland, then San Diego, Atlanta, who, like I said, I'm a little wary of the weather there, but that is a good handful of teams that we could be getting to. Let's look at the exposures. We're on FanDuel. We're getting to a bunch of Pablo Lopez. He is our overall most rostered pitcher. Then we're seeing a bunch of Giants there. What else are you noticing, Neil?
I just want to, since I just refreshed it, I'm noticing that I'm still getting to some Giants. If you're using this, make sure that you're not getting Mike Yastrzemski in your lineups. I know that the lineup just came out. It's a little bit different than we are expecting. So maybe something worth paying attention to. Make sure that you have the right Giants in your lineups if you're playing them. But in general, I'd say like these look good. Like this is the exposure is spread out enough that I often will say in my videos, like I don't want to get to 80+% of individual players on most slates, especially slates this size, unless there is massive positive leverage. I don't really think we have massive positive leverage on this slate. So this is the kind where I am more inclined to like the Wilmer Flores. Maybe I go back and get rid of a few of these Giant stacks, discard those, go find some that don't have the Giants players in them. But in general, we're spread out pretty well on this slate.
And more news, the Red Sox Braves game is also going to be delayed. So I'm taking both these games out of my player pool. It's risky, right? Because the Red Sox are in a good spot. The Braves are in a good spot, but so is the weather is pretty daunting there. And there's still a ton of ownership going there. We've got, even though it's come down, the Red Sox are currently the 3rd most popular team on the slate. So listen to this, actually. The most popular team is the Cubs, Neil. 2nd most popular team is the Guardians. 3rd is the Red Sox. 4th is the Braves. 5th is the Nationals. 6th is the Rockies.
Okay.
4 of the 6 most popular teams might not end up playing today.
You can get a massive edge if you just don't play those teams and they end up not playing.
That's what I'm leaning towards doing right now.
Yeah, I might end up doing the same thing.
I don't feel great about it, but I think it's the way to go because of the ownership still being so popular.
Yeah. No, I think it's probably a smart idea.
And that's going to do it for the lineup generator. By the way, guys, if you have not signed up for it yet, less than $5 using the link below when you sign up for the first time. Feel like Kennedy Mathis, 3rd place, $1,000. over in the Mega Mini Max on DraftKings for less than $5 investment. So go check that out for sure. But now let's go ahead and talk about some of the top stacks, Neil, starting with the questions that we were being asked here by the audience. So first, a super chat here from Corey Shea. Corey wants to know, who is our top contrarian stack? So let's see. What do we want? And I know Corey plays over on DraftKings. Let's say anybody below 5% ownership. So we're taking out the 6 teams we just talked about and the Padres. Everything else is below 5% ownership. So what is the team that you are identifying as your favorite contrarian stack with sub 5% ownership as a team?
Yeah, it's probably still the Dodgers up against Chris Bassett. Not the best matchup in the world against Bassett, but anytime you get the Dodgers at sub 4% ownership, we've got them with a 5% chance to be in the top stack on the slate. They're dangerous against anybody. So when you can get the Dodgers at low ownership, I'm gonna go there. So it'd probably be the Dodgers for me. How about you?
In between a couple spots. I'm going to say the White Sox against Kyle Hendricks. And Kyle Hendricks' numbers are not bad this year. Not bad by any means. His numbers the last few years have been absolutely dog shit terrible. And I do think, and this is going to be an opinion based on just some of it's going to be a gut feeling. Some of it also is just going to be, he's been so bad for the last few years. Kyle Hendricks being 33 years old. I think a lot of his success this year is just due to a small sample size. He's made 11 starts this year. He has a 3.38 ERA, solid, 3.86 expected ERA, also solid. But the last couple of years, his results were so poor. 4.8 ERA last year, 5.07 expected ERA. The year before that, 4.77 ERA, 4.95 expected ERA. How much weight do we want to put into the 64 innings that Kyle Hendricks has pitched this year when he's 33 years old and already shown signs of decline when he was 31 and 32 years old? Not a hard throwing pitcher. His average fastball velocity is 87 miles per hour this year. I'm going to chalk up a lot of his results so far to being fluky. And also, that's what a lot of projection sources say. Zips has him with a 4.39 ERA the rest of the season. Steamer, 4.85. The bat, 5.05. I think regression is coming for Kyle Hendricks. He's always been a pitcher that's had a below league average home run to fly ball rate. Well, depending how you look at it, above league average, if it worse than normal for a pitcher, right? It's higher than what it normally is. So last year, 13.5%, the year before, 15.6%. He used to be a heavy ground ball pitcher that slowly declined as he's gotten older. I think this is a gettable pitcher. And with that in mind, and the fact that I do think regression is coming to him in the second half of the year, minimal ownership on the White Sox, give me the Chicago White Sox, the other side of the Chicago game, to have a big game against Kyle Hendricks. Is that a team that you are getting to at all?
You're kind of talking me into it. So I am not getting any of them currently in the lineup generator. So today I'm using lineup generator, and I do not currently have any, but I do actually. You've sold me on it. It's probably a good idea to play some White Sox. Maybe if you use the contrarian setting in lineup generator, you can get to some.
Next question we have here is from Einstein. He wants to know, how do we feel about the Mets as a stack today? Happy you asked, because this is one of the other teams that I was wrestling with potentially saying as a contrarian team. I'm not a Domingo Germán guy. I know he had the perfect game this year. I absolutely got killed on that slate because of it. But if you have blindly been stacking against Domingo Germán in all of his starts this year, you have come out ahead. He has a 4.52 ERA. He's a 4.62 FIP this year. He has a 16% home run to fly ball rate, only a 38% ground ball rate. There are a lot of things that add up here to Domingo Germán being a pitcher that there's a lot of upside against. His fastball velocity, a career worst 92.4 miles per hour. It has gone down in every single subsequent season since he's been in the big leagues. He entered the league with a 96.1 average mile per hour fastball velocity. It's gone down like a mile per hour to a half mile per hour every year to the point where it's 92.4 this year. I think he's a pitcher who could definitely be giving up a good amount of power. We've got, Pete Alonso is healthy for the Mets again. I think the Mets offense should be better in the second half of the season than it was in the first half of the year. I'm not super high on Domingo Germán. I do like stacking against him. Mets, a team that I like getting to. Neil, what does the top stacks tool say about the Mets? And are you opinionated in any kind of way about stacking against Germán?
Yeah, I do really like the Mets here in Yankee Stadium against Domingo Germán, and they look good in the top stack tool. 3.8% projected ownership, 3.9% chance being the top stack, and then 5.6% chance of being the top value stack. I'm with you. I don't think Germán is particularly good. It's obviously a good ballpark in Yankee Stadium, and the Mets are just a deadly team. So definitely have some interest in the Mets today.
All right. The next question we have here is from Gangrene. He wants to know, what are our thoughts on the Texas Rangers? So Texas Rangers a little bit banged up right now. Corey Seager, surprise, surprise, is on the injured list. Seager is great when healthy, but you always know those injured list trips are inevitable. I believe this is his second one of the season. So no Corey Seager for them. They are in a, I'd say a neutral matchup against JP France on the road in Houston here. Here's the big problem I have with the Texas Rangers. A lot of the pitchers I like today, other than Alex Cobb, are really expensive. And the Texas Rangers are also really expensive as a stack. So if I'm going to be contrarian and pay up at offense, I'd rather it be the Los Angeles Dodgers than the Texas Rangers. So I don't really get to much of Texas.
I guess in my drafts early, I got to a little bit of Texas. I do think that they're at least an interesting stack today against JP Sears. So I like the idea of playing Texas. They're coming in. They look fairly neutral, to be honest, in the top stacks tool, 3% ownership, 3% chance to be in the top stack. So they're not like some huge priority for me, but pretty interesting when you can play. They're clearly not the Dodgers, but Texas also a pretty dangerous stack at low ownership. So I don't hate the idea of playing Texas here.
It's just the price point for me. It's not a team that I'm really getting to. So if I look at my top 150 lineups right now and my stack exposures, I have 2.7% Ranger stacks. So it's not like an outright fade for me, but it is underweight to the field. And the biggest issue is just the price point combined with the pitchers that I like getting to. Other questions in Discord. It looks like we have answered all of those. Going to double check the YouTube chat.
By the way, I did get to some White Sox in the lineup generator using the contrarian setting. So happy to be on board with you.
So let's talk about teams we aren't getting to, which for me is the Chicago Cubs. I have the Cubs in 4% of lineups, which is well underweight to that 13% ownership the field is getting to. And I did have almost none of the Cubs until I took the rain games out of my player pool. But Neil, we've got the Cubs who are just projected to be by far the most popular team on the entire slate. They are negatively leveraged in the top stacks tool. So what are you going to do with a team that is crazy, crazy chalky in a favorable hitting environment against Michael Kopech, but seemingly pretty overowned?
Still probably getting to some Cubs. They clearly are overowned, as you said, in the top stacks tool. I think it will so we do have both of those weather games in here. The equation changes a little bit if those two other games get rained out. Clearly, the top stack odds for the Cubs go up if those four other stacks are taken out of there. So I think the Cubs are fine to play here against Michael Kopech. It's probably a both sider. So we talked about how we're going to be playing some Kopech in some lineups, in those non-Kopech lineups. I've got no issue getting to some Cubs. They might end up being top in the top stacks tool if Atlanta ends up getting canceled. Yeah, I'm with you. They're overowned. I'm going to be probably underweight to the field. Let me see it. Actually, currently I have 15% of Cubs in some form. That can be secondary stacks though too. So I don't know that it's entirely indicative of how much I'm getting to, but I'm fine playing some Cubs. Like there's a reason they're chalky, and it's because they are potentially the top stack on the board if we lose that Atlanta game. So even at a little bit overowned, I'm still happy to get to a little bit of the Cubs.
Yeah, like I said, it's not a total outright favorite for me, but this is the team I'm most underweight to on the entire slate, just based on what their ownership is expected to be. And I'm going to do one more ownership refresh here to see what it is that the latest ownership. And yeah, nothing has changed since the time I updated a couple minutes ago here. It's just too much ownership. Like, I agree it being a good spot. If you guys are playing cash games, go load up on the Cubs. They're going to be crazy popular in cash games. Play the Cubs. DraftKings, FanDuel, cash games, tournaments. I think it's a spot to be underweight to the field too. And also as a weather update, have you arrived at, the slate's locking here in 10 minutes, Neil. Have you arrived at a final conclusion of what you're doing with the Washington, Colorado game and the Braves, Red Sox game?
I have a little bit, so I'm only full stacking, so I'm not playing any one-offs from either of those games. I have 10% Atlanta right now. I have 5% Colorado. I didn't even notice that. And I have 10% Washington. I think I'm going to go back and get rid of my Colorado and Washington lineups. I think I'm going to keep some Atlanta in there. So and if I had Red Sox, I'd probably keep them.
Yep, 0% of all of it for me. 0% Braves, 0% Red Sox, 0% Nationals, 0% Rockies. I get that it's a little risky, but if you guys weren't watching at the top of the show when we talked about it a little bit before, these are 4 of the 6 most popular stacks on the entire slate. And I just think it's a way that we could really differentiate our lineups because they're going to be popular. They still don't, other than Atlanta, it's not like they project exceptionally well for us. The Braves absolutely do. These other teams do not. And it's still, there's a lot of popularity going to them. I think one way to get different is you just go elsewhere and you have a couple of outs. The game gets canceled. That's an obvious out. The other out here also is they just play and they don't play all that well. We see that happen all the time with popular offenses. So I'm going to be going a little bit different at offense. The team I do like the most of the most popular teams is the Guardians. They show up the most for me. When you run lineups through the lineup generator like we were doing before, when I run lineups through the Sims tool, I get to the most of the Guardians. So I think that's, for me, the way that I want to play it. If you guys want to be different, I understand, but I'm ignoring the weather games today. I'm taking them out.
I think that is totally reasonable, by the way. I'm going to play a little bit of them, but I'm also not playing a ton. And I think it's absolutely reasonable to completely fade those games.
Now, let's go ahead and look at some of the other contrarian teams. Are there any crazy spots you like for really low ownership? Like any of these spots you think have leverage or 1-2% owned that you think is a reasonable team to get to differentiate?
I worry that I'm going to be called a homer, but I do like the Twins today against George Kirby. I really like George Kirby in some lineups. He's fairly contrarian, but the Twins, the one spot that Kirby sometimes does struggle with is with lefty power. Adam wrote about it today. I read Adam's, and he sold me a little bit on the Twins. They just have so many good lefties, and the Twins lineup, I think, has like 7 lefties in it. So if you're dealing with a pitcher that struggles with lefties and you've got a bunch of good lefties, some of them with power in the Twins lineup at 3% ownership, I do think the Twins are fairly interesting. I actually think the other side of that game is sort of interesting too. Seattle against obviously a tough spot with Pablo Lopez. I'm playing a lot of Pablo Lopez. I think you could go to some Seattle there as well. But yeah, it'd probably be the Twins over Seattle for me. Yeah, outside of those, like the really low owned spots, Houston is actually really interesting to me against Cody Bradford starting for Texas. Houston coming in at 1% ownership with a 4% chance of being the top stack. They're definitely a lineup that I have some interest in. So I'd say those are the really contrarian stacks that I have some interest in. How about you?
You know, it's tough from a standpoint of you get these like crazy low owned stacks, and a lot of times I'll try to pick on some of the popular pitchers, but like for instance, yesterday, a stack I loved was the Colorado Rockies against Patrick Corbin, right? Because Patrick Corbin is a trash pitcher to be really popular, and that side did work out. Like, I don't want to stack the Pirates today against Blake Snell. I don't want to stack the Reds today against Corbin Burns. So I don't find any of these like 1-2% owned teams to be ones that I'm really desiring to get to. If I had to pick one, I'd say the Kansas City Royals, just because of the popular pitchers. To me, Aaron Savali's pretty clearly the worst of the popular pitchers.
Yep, agreed.
So if I'm going to be underweight to the field on Savali and I have to pick one of these contrarian offenses to get overweight to, it might as well be the Royals, when we do have them with the 4th best value odds on the entire slate. So you could pretty easily make a 5-man stack of the Royals, get leverage against Aaron Savali, and then pay up for whoever you want to pitch. And you still have a relatively different lineup because the Royals are so contrarian. So, you know, it's not one of those 1 or 2% on stacks, but, you know, still fairly low owned. The Royals getting leverage off Savali, and also the ability to pay up for Blake Snell, pay up for Corbin Burns in that lineup while still being kind of different. So I really don't mind that build as a path to go to be a little bit different. Anything else that stands out to you as far as contrarian pitchers go? If not, we'll look at BetPro and see if there's any bets that we like over at BetMGM, because they are the sponsor today.
I mean, you could consider playing some of the Yankees against Justin Verlander. I guess just they're another team that is just good enough that maybe you want to play some of them. Maybe not the best version of the Yankees though. No, I think we've covered the most interesting stacks.
All right, so let's go ahead and we'll look at MLB BetPro, find some bets we like. And by the way, if you guys haven't checked out BetPro, if you use the link below to sign up, 70% off, less than $1 a day for your first month of BetPro. And for right now, just baseball, but, you know, also come basketball season, that is included in the same package as well. And you could also sort by different sports books. So if you play on DraftKings, sort by DraftKings. You play on FanDuel, you can sort by FanDuel. But our sponsor today is BetMGM. So let's look for the best bets of the day over at BetMGM. And also remind you guys that if you sign up at BetMGM using our link, you do get 1 free month of Stochastic Plus Platinum. Anything that's really standing out to you at BetMGM from our Bet Pro tool here, Neil, I will say one thing that is standing out to me right here is that we are liking Blake Snell for under 7.5 strikeouts, but only because of the plus money on it. We have him projected for 6.9 strikeouts today. Under 7.5 strikeouts is a plus 125 line. So Blake Snell under 7.5 strikeouts. I do think that is something that is worth looking at only because of the plus money. I wouldn't go play if it was even money, but this is a bet that we have winning 46% of the time with plus 125 odds. So that is good enough to have a little bit of positive EV there.
Yeah, let me see. Man, I don't like the Max Kepler under 0.5 hits is showing up. I was hoping for an over there. Yeah. I mean, I guess you just got to go to the highest EV bets, right? So these Nick Allen under total bases, under total hits, I would go for. The line is 0.5 for Nick Allen. I suppose you could go there. Yeah. Maybe can you correlate? Could you do Nick Allen and then also do like Tony Kemp under 0.5? Or JJ Bleday?
I don't know what options they have for the same game parlays. So
okay.
It's hard for me to say just from looking at our data.
A lot of these Oakland under 0.5 total bases are looking good. So I think you can mix in whichever of those you want to do. Oh, the line for Seth Brown is 1.5. So that's kind of interesting. I like taking the under 1.5 total bases for Seth Brown.
Yeah, Nick Allen, Seth Brown, those both look pretty solid here. Let's see. Are there any home run props or other strikeouts? Under 5.5 for Verlander, I think that's playable, but pretty marginal value. Yeah, in general, it looks like just a lot of the unders for the Oakland A's hitters, which should never be shocking, is what's popping up the most.
Yep.
All right, let's go ahead and close out the show then, Neil, with our favorite home run picks of the day. By the way, the Red Sox just put out their lineup now. Maybe goes to show you when they think the game may or may not play. The game's supposed to lock in, 10 minutes, and they're just putting their lineup out right now. But anyway, home run pick of the day. Neil, use your wisdom here. And I know you got to crunch some numbers. You got to...
Yeah, I got to do some math in my head here.
By home runs. Using your very scientific method, who are you picking at a home run today?
Yeah, let me crunch some numbers real quick in my head. It's probably going to be Christopher Morel for me against Michael Kopech. I think he's it's not the best spot against Michael Kopech, but I just really believe in Christopher Morel as a batter. I think that he's got about a 31% chance of hitting a home run. I think he's got the best odds on the board. Who do you like?
So for me, my home run pick of the day, I think I'm going to go right back to the one I did the other day. He didn't homer, but Jose Ramirez. Because here's the thing also. Jose Ramirez, great hitter. If I'm going to continue to be overweight to him, not as overweight as he is himself, but still just in general, if I'm going to be overweight to Jose Ramirez, I think I should just keep hitting I martingale this, right? I just keep picking him to hit a home run until he does.
Absolutely. Makes sense to me.
All right.
Yeah.
Jose Ramirez. That is my home run pick of the day. That's what I'm going with. And let's see, what is the best available line for Jose Ramirez homer in BetPro? Jose Ramirez, I'm sure it's not going to be plus EV because it's hard to find, just any player. Oh, actually, you know what? Not terrible, though. He is 5-1 over on DraftKings. We've got this as being like slightly negative EV, but still 5-1 on Jose Ramirez. That's my home run pick today. See, from the YouTube chat, we've got some home run picks. We have Jasper the Clown going with Muncy. We've got Charles Moran going with Salvador Perez. Malukar's got JD Martinez. Arcafelza's got Victor Caratini. Drop Roses has got Jock Peterson. Let's see, who else? Chunk the Deuce. He's got that boy Jose cold as ice. I don't really know what that means for him. Does that mean
Jose Ramirez
doesn't agree with me? By the way, the way that I do my home run picks is I run my lineups through the sim tool, and then I just kind of look at the most rostered hitters I have, and then I just pick from there because it's something that I think is a player who's realistic to homer, but also I feel is valuable DFS advice because it's somebody I'm overweight to in my lineup. So
sure,
Jose Ramirez is my most rostered hitter. That's really why I picked him to homer. And it seems like Devin Neiman on the same page. He went with Andres Jimenez. And now if we go into Discord, just going to make sure that there are no more final questions. and there are not. And we're about to be approaching lock here. So guys, thank you very much for watching. If you're not done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Don't forget about our podcast network. Go check that out. If you're ever on the run and want to listen to our strategy shows where you're driving home from work, commuting, anything along those lines, go check out our podcast channel. We're going to be having podcast exclusive content once football starts out in about a month or so. So go subscribe to that. Good luck with all your lineups today. Hope you guys all win some money, and I'll see you back here tomorrow.